Chapter 1. Blood on the Ledger. The man in the back room of Bellini, S., was still alive when Alina Vale found him, but only barely. He lay folded against the wine crates like someone had dropped him there and forgotten to finish the job. Blood soaked through the front of his white shirt, spread beneath his ribs, and glistened black-red on the cracked tile. One hand clutched a leather ledger to his chest. The other reached for Alina as if she were salvation, judgment, or the next mistake. Alina stopped so hard the pastry box slammed against her stomach. For one wild second, her mind refused to accept what her eyes were seeing. Bellini, S. was supposed to smell like basil, garlic, espresso, and expensive old city arrogance. It was supposed to be a Tuesday night delivery, 12 cannoli, 8 sfogliatelle, 4 lemon torts, cash on arrival, because Bellini's owner always pretended his card machine was broken. It was not supposed to be a dying man bleeding over a ledger, while rain tapped against the alley door behind her. "Help," he rasped. Alina's grip tightened on the pastry box until the cardboard buckled. Oh my God. His eyes jerked toward the hallway. Not the public hallway, bright with red leather booths and Sinatra, humming through hidden speakers. The other hallway. The one she had been told never to use. The one the hostess had pointed at tonight with a shaking hand and said, "Mr. Bellini wants the delivery in back." "Alina Vale," the man whispered. Her blood went cold. She did not know him. She knew almost everyone in this neighborhood because Vale's Bakery had sat on St. Agnes Street for 32 years, first under her father's name, then under hers after the heart attack took him before he could confess whatever secret had been sitting behind his tired eyes. Alina knew the priests who bought rum cake and pretended it was for parish meetings. She knew the cops who came for black coffee after night shifts. She knew the wives who ordered birthday cakes for husbands they hated, and the men who paid in cash with rings they did not wear at home. She did not know the dying man on Bellini's floor, but he knew her. "How do you know my name?" Her voice came out thin. He tried to laugh and choked instead. Blood bubbled at the corner of his mouth. "Your father." The pastry box slipped from her hands. It hit the tile with a dull thud, cream and sugar and careful work ruined at her feet. She should have run then. That was what a sensible woman did when she walked into a back room and found a bleeding stranger saying her dead father's name. She should have screamed, called the police, taken the alley exit, and never looked back. Instead, she dropped to her knees beside him, because terror had not yet killed the part of her that could not watch someone die alone. "I'm calling an ambulance." No, his fingers snapped around her wrist with startling force. No cops. His skin was clammy. His nails dug into her. Alina yanked once, instinctive panic flaring hot through her chest. "Let go." He did immediately. The obedience shocked her more than the grip had. His eyes filled with apology. "Sorry, listen." The word came out wet and broken. Alina's phone was already in her hand. Her thumb trembled over the emergency call screen. "You're bleeding out." "Ledger," he said. "Take it." "No." "Take it or he dies for nothing." "He." The man's eyes cut toward the closed door, beyond the wine racks. Alina followed his gaze. The door was black, iron-handled, and out of place in a restaurant that worked so hard to look like old Naples. It had no sign, no window, just 3 scratches near the lock, fresh enough that pale wood showed beneath the paint. Somewhere on the other side, a floorboard creaked. Alina stopped breathing. The dying man shoved the ledger toward her. "Voss." That name did what blood and death had not. It made the room smaller. Marco Voss was not the kind of man people discussed directly. They lowered their voices when they said his name, as if the syllables themselves had ears. He owned half the city on paper and the other half through fear. Restaurants, shipping warehouses, construction firms, judges who smiled too quickly, policemen who looked away too often. Men disappeared after crossing him. Men rose after pleasing him. Women watched him from across charity galas and pretended they were not watching a man who looked like sin, had put on a tailored suit, and learned patience. Alina had seen him once, 2 months ago. Rainy morning. 6:45. He had come into Vale's bakery alone, no bodyguards visible, no driver hovering by the curb. He ordered an espresso, black, and a plain cornetto. He tipped $100 on a $7 bill and looked at Alina as if he already knew the shape of every room she had ever locked inside herself. She had hated him for it, then dreamed about him for 3 nights. Now his name sat between her and a dying man like a loaded gun. Marco Voss, she whispered. The man F. Lynched, not Marco, not. The black door opened. Alina twisted around. A man stepped from the darkness beyond it, and the back room seemed to recognize him before she did. The air changed. The weak overhead bulb flickered. Even the dying accountant went still, as if fear could hold blood inside a body. Marco Voss was larger than Alina remembered. Not taller exactly, though he had that too. Height, breadth, the kind of physical control that made every inch of him seem deliberate. He wore a charcoal suit with no tie, black shirt open at the throat, rain dampening the ends of dark hair brushed carelessly back from a severe face. His eyes were not black, though people called them that. They were a cold, impossible brown, almost gold near the pupil, the color of whiskey held over flame. He looked first at the man on the floor, then at Alina. Nothing in his expression changed, but the silence did. It tightened. Alina Vale, he said. Her heart gave one hard, furious kick. You know my name too. She rose too fast, knees unsteady, one palm slick with blood from where she had touched the floor. Apparently everyone in this room does except me. Marco's gaze dropped to her hand. A muscle moved in his jaw. Did he touch you? The question was low, controlled. Not tender exactly, but dangerous in a way that had turned its full attention toward her well-being. Alina hated that her body noticed. He's dying. I know. Then do something. I did. The accountant made a broken sound. Alina stared at Marco. What does that mean? Marco crossed the room, not hurried, not slow. The dying man shrank back against the crates, still clutching the ledger. Marco crouched in front of him, his suit pulling cleanly over powerful thighs, his hands bare and steady. Dario, he said. Who? Dario, the accountant had a name. That made it worse. Dario's lips trembled. I tried to bring it to you. I know. They knew. Who knew? Dario's eyes slid to Alina, and there it was again. Recognition, regret, a secret older than the blood on his shirt. Marco noticed. Of course he noticed. Men like him did not survive by missing the small shifts that betrayed entire wars. Alina, Marco said without looking away from Dario, stand behind me. No. His eyes cut to her. The back room went airless. Alina lifted her chin, though her pulse hammered so hard she could feel it in her teeth. Do not give me orders. Something flickered across Marco's face. Surprise, perhaps. Interest, worse. There may be another shooter in this building. Then say that. A pause. Then, carefully, there may be another shooter in this building. Please stand behind me. The please was not soft. It was not sweet. It sounded like a word he had dragged through broken glass because she had demanded it. Still, he had said it. Alina moved, not because he told her to, but because she was not stupid enough to make pride her last act on earth. She stepped behind him, close enough to smell rain, smoke, and the faint bite of his cologne. Expensive, restrained, masculine without being loud about it. His body blocked hers from the black door. Dario coughed. Marco's attention returned to him. Give me a name. Dario shook his head. Tears leaked from the corners of his eyes. Not safe. No one in this room is safe. Dario laughed once, a ruined, awful sound. She never was. Alina's stomach dropped. Marco's shoulders went still. What does that mean? Alina demanded. Dario's gaze found hers. Your father kept the first ledger. The words punched through her. For a moment, she was no longer in Bellini's. She was 13, standing in the bakery kitchen at midnight, watching her father burn papers in the big oven while telling her to go back upstairs. She was 19, overhearing him whisper on the phone, We're done, I paid enough. She was 26, gripping his hand in the hospital while he tried to form one final sentence and failed. Your father kept the first ledger. No, she said. But denial had no muscle. Marco turned his head slightly. Your father was Samuel Vale. Don't, her voice cracked. She hated that it cracked. Don't say his name like you know him. I knew of him. That is not better. No, Marco said, it is not. Dario's hand spasmed around the ledger. Page, he gasped. Page 72. Marco reached for the book. Dario clutched it tighter. Give it to her. Alina recoiled. No, I don't want it. Dario's eyes sharpened, with the last bright burn of a man running out of time. You have to. Marco looked at her then, fully. There were men whose attention felt like flattery. Men whose attention felt like threat. Marco Voss's attention felt like a door locking somewhere deep underground. You do not have to take anything from anyone, he said. The words were quiet, precise. They should not have affected her. They did anyway. Because every story she had ever heard about Marco Voss painted him as a man who took territory, money, loyalty, breath. Yet he was, in a blood-slick back room, offering her a choice while death begged her to surrender it. Alina swallowed. What happens if I take it? You become valuable. To you. To people who will not ask whether you want to be. Are you one of those people? His eyes held hers. I am trying not to be. That was the first honest thing anyone had said all night. It frightened her more than a lie. A sound came from the restaurant beyond the hallway. Not music. The music had stopped. Voices rose, muffled. A chair scraped. Something heavy fell. Marco stood in one fluid motion and drew a gun from beneath his jacket. Alina's lungs seized. He did not point it at her. He did not wave it, posture with it, make it theatrical. The weapon appeared in his hand like an extension of an ugly truth. He stepped backward until his shoulder nearly brushed hers. Stay close, he said. Is that an order or request? His mouth tightened. A request. Because of the shooter. Because I can protect what I can reach. She should not have felt that sentence low, in her stomach. She should not have felt anything except horror. But adrenaline was a wicked translator. It took fear, proximity, the heat of his body, the lethal steadiness of his hand, and turned them into something bright-edged and shameful beneath her ribs. Dario made a wet, fading sound. Alina looked down. His hand had gone slack. The ledger lay half open across his chest. For a second, no one moved. Then Marco cursed softly in Italian. Alina bent before she could think better of it. Her fingers closed around the ledger's spine. It was heavier than she expected, the leather warm from Dario's dying body. Marco's gaze snapped to her hand. "I'm taking it," she said before he could object. "Not for you, not for him, for my father." A shadow moved beyond the hallway. Marco lifted the gun. "Behind me," he said. This time, Alina did not argue. A man burst through the hall door with a pistol raised. Everything happened too fast and too slowly. Marco shoved Alina back with his forearm, not hard enough to hurt, just enough to move her out of the line of fire. The gunshot cracked through the back room, deafening. Wine bottles exploded on the rack behind them, red liquid and glass spraying like another kind of blood. Alina dropped, the ledger crushed beneath her chest, ears ringing. Marco fired once. The man in the doorway slammed backward and vanished from sight. Alina could not hear herself breathing. Could not hear anything but the metallic scream left behind by the shot. Marco crouched in front of her. His gun remained angled toward the doorway, but his other hand hovered near her shoulder without touching. "Alina," her name in his mouth, cut through the ringing. "Alina, look at me." She did. His face was close enough that she could see the faint scar at the edge of his lower lip, the stubble along his jaw, the controlled fury burning under his calm. Not at her, around her. Like the room itself had offended him by threatening to touch her. "Are you hit?" he asked. "I don't know. May I check?" The question stunned her. Blood, gunfire, a dead man on the floor, another possibly dead man in the hall, and Marco Voss was asking permission to touch her. Alina nodded once. "Words," he said. "I need words." Her throat worked. "Yes, check." He moved with brisk restraint, one hand skimming her arms, her shoulders, the sides of her waist over her flour-dusted black dress. Not lingering, not taking. Searching for wounds with a focus that somehow made the contact more intimate than if he had tried to make it sensual. His hand paused near her ribs. She flinched. He stopped immediately. Pain. No, ticklish. The absurd word escaped before she could stop it. For one impossible second, his eyes warmed. Not softened. Warmed. Then the restaurant erupted into shouting. Marco rose and extended a hand. "We need to leave." Alina stared at his hand. A sane woman would not take it. A sane woman would run screaming into the dining room, find witnesses, demand police, refuse to be swallowed by the gravity of a man like Marco Voss. But the ledger was under her palm. Her father's ghost was in the room, and whoever had sent that shooter had known she was here. Alina took Marco's hand. His fingers closed around hers, firm and warm, and pulled her to her feet. The contact lasted only as long as necessary. That was what unsettled her. Marco did not hold on once she was standing. He did not use the moment to assert ownership. He released her and stepped toward the hallway first, placing his body between her and whatever came next. "Keep the ledger under your coat," he said. I don't have a coat. His gaze moved over her dress, the bakery apron tied at her waist, the ridiculous smear of powdered sugar on her hip. For a fraction of a second, the danger in him shifted shape. Not softened, focused. Her skin prickled. Then he stripped off his suit jacket and held it out. Alina did not take it. I'm covered eye. And blood. It is a jacket, Alina. It looks expensive. It is less expensive than you. Her eyes narrowed. Do not start that. I meant strategically. You said it like a man who prices women. His expression sharpened, and there it was. Friction. Not fear. Not exactly. Something alive sparking between them while death cooled behind their feet. I do not price women, he said. You just told me I'm valuable. To my enemies, not to me. What am I to you? The question came out before she could stop it. Marco's stare locked on hers. The shouting beyond the hallway grew louder. Sirens wailed somewhere far off, or maybe only in her imagination. Still, for one suspended heartbeat, the world narrowed to the space between her question and his answer. A complication, he said. It should have insulted her. Instead, she heard the restraint beneath it, the things he would not say, the things he did not trust himself to name. Alina snatched the jacket from him. It swallowed her shoulders and smelled so much like him that she nearly shoved it back. She wrapped the ledger inside it instead, clutching the bundle to her chest. Marco opened the back door to the alley. Rain blew in. The alley behind Bellini. S was a narrow wound between brick buildings, slick with oil and runoff, lit by a single caged bulb above the service entrance. A black SUV waited at the curb beyond the chain-link gate, engine running, headlights off. A man stood beside it, broad, bearded, and tense, one hand under his jacket. Boss, the man called. Rafe, Marco's voice was clipped. Two inside. Dario is dead, one shooter down. There may be more. Rafe's gaze flicked to Alina, then away with professional speed. Police scanner says shots reported 3 blocks over. Diversion. Marco's face hardened. Alina caught it. Diversion. They wanted time, Marco said. For what? His phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen. For the first time since he had stepped into the room, Marco Voss looked genuinely unsettled. It lasted less than a second, but Alina saw it. That tiny fracture in the marble. What? She asked. He did not answer. Marco. His eyes lifted to hers at the sound of his name, without the Mr. Voss distance. Something passed through them, warning, recognition. A heat that had no business existing in an alley with blood drying on her hand. Then he turned the phone toward her. The message on the screen showed a photo. Vale's bakery. Her bakery. The front window was still intact in the image, warm light glowing over the painted lettering her father had done by hand 15 years ago. Her assistant, Nina, 24 and stubborn, and too kind for her own good, was visible behind the counter, laughing at something outside the frame. Beneath the photo was a line of text. She saw the ledger. Send her out alone, or we start with the girl. Alina's chest caved in. Nina, she whispered. Marco was already moving toward the SUV. Rafe, bakery, now. Alina grabbed his arm. Every man in the alley went still. Even Marco. His eyes dropped to her hand on his sleeve. She let go, but she did not step back. I'm coming. No. The refusal cracked out of him like a slammed door. Alina's fear ignited into rage. That is my bakery, my employee, my life. And they want you exposed. They already have me exposed. Alina. No, she stepped closer, close enough that she had to tilt her head to hold his gaze. Rain spotted her cheeks, her lashes. His jacket hung from her arms with the ledger hidden inside it, binding them in ways she did not yet understand. You do not get to lock me away and call it protection. His jaw flexed. I can keep you alive. Can you keep her alive while I sit obediently in your car? A muscle jumped beneath his eye. Good. She wanted him angry. Anger was easier than the way his attention kept dragging heat through the terror. Easier than noticing how steady his breathing was, how his body seemed built to absorb catastrophe and keep moving. Easier than wondering why a man who could command a city had asked before touching her. You will stay in the vehicle, he said. I will decide that when we get there. This is not a negotiation. Then you are talking to the wrong woman. Rafe made a sound that might have been a cough. Marco did not look away from Alina. Rain slid down the hard line of his cheek. The alley light caught in his eyes, turning them almost amber. For a moment, she saw the contradiction everyone missed when they whispered his name like a curse. The ruthless man, yes. The weapon in a suit. But also the man measuring her fear and choosing not to use it against her. Get in the car, he said at last. Not because I own your choice, because every second we argue gives them another second with Nina. Alina hated how well that landed. She climbed into the SUV. Marco followed, taking the seat beside her instead of the front. The door slammed, sealing them in a dark leather interior that smelled of cold air, gun oil, and him. Rafe G. Ott behind the wheel. The vehicle launched away from the curb before Alina had fully buckled. She fumbled with the seat belt, fingers shaking too badly to make it click. Marco reached, then stopped. May I? She stared at him. His hand remained suspended between them. Yes, she said. He drew the belt across her body, careful not to brush where he did not need to. The buckle clicked. His knuckles grazed the side of her hip as he withdrew, and the brief contact went through her like a match strike. His eyes met hers. He had felt it too. That was the problem. Not the blood, not only the bullets, not even the ledger pressing against her thighs like a curse wrapped in leather. This, the impossible awareness blooming in the middle of danger. The primitive recognition of a man she should fear. A man who carried violence like a second skeleton, looking at her as if restraint were the only civilized thing left in him. Do not look at me like that, she said. Marco's voice was low. Like what? Like you're deciding where I belong. His gaze dropped to her mouth. Only for a second. Long enough. I know where you belong tonight, he said. Her pulse stumbled. Alive, he finished. Alina looked away first. Outside, the city blurred through rain and speed. Neon bled across the windows. Sirens began somewhere behind them. Her phone buzzed in her apron pocket, and she nearly tore the fabric getting it out. Nina. Alina answered with a shaking thumb. Nina. At first, there was only static. Then Nina's voice came through, breathless and terrified. Alina, don't come here. Ice spread through Alina's veins. Where are you? At the bakery, I'm okay. I'm hiding in the pantry, a muffled sob. There are men outside. Marco leaned closer, not touching Alina, but close enough to hear. Alina tightened her grip on the phone. Lock the pantry door, Stay low. I did. Alina, one of them said your dad's name. Alina's vision narrowed. Marco went utterly still beside her. What did they say? Alina asked. Nina sniffed. They said Samuel Vale stole from the wrong brother. The wrong brother. Not the wrong family. Not the wrong Don. The wrong brother. Alina turned slowly toward Marco. His face had gone cold, in a way that made the temperature inside the SUV seem to drop. How many brothers do you have? She asked. Marco did not answer quickly enough. Her stomach turned. Alina, Nina whispered through the phone. Someone's coming. Then glass shattered through the line. Nina screamed. The call cut off. Alina lurched forward against the seat belt. Drive faster. Rafe cursed and pressed harder on the accelerator. Marco pulled another gun from beneath the seat, checked it with terrifying efficiency, and handed Alina a small black phone instead. Emergency line. Press 1, it calls Rafe. Press 2, me. Press 3, police through a rooted number. I have my own phone. Yours is traceable. She stared at the device, then at him. How do you know that? Because whoever sent that message found you at Bellini's, knew your bakery, knew Nina, and knew your father. This was not luck. The ledger seemed to grow heavier in her lap. Page 72, she whispered. Marco's gaze cut to the bundle. Not now. Yes, now. Alina, if that page has what I think it has, once you see it, you cannot unknow it. My bakery is under attack. A man died saying my father's name. We are past unknow. The SUV took a turn hard enough to throw her against Marco's side. His arm came around her on reflex, bracing her before she could hit the door. Strong, secure, gone the instant she caught herself. He did not apologize for touching her. He did not pretend it had not happened either. Are you all right? He asked. No, she pulled the ledger from his jacket. But I'm done being the last person in the room who doesn't understand why people are trying to kill me. She opened the book. The pages were dense with numbers, initials, dates, coded columns. Her father had taught her bookkeeping by hand when she was 16, making her balance bakery orders until she could spot a false entry at a glance. This was not bakery math. This was a city's worth of sin disguised as accounting. Her fingers found page 72. At first, she saw only names. Bellini, Dario Conte, Elvas, S. Vale. Her breath stopped. Samuel Vale. Beneath her father's name was an address. Not the bakery. Not their old apartment. A storage unit near the river. And beside it, written in red ink, were 3 words that made Marco curse under his breath. Original ledger hidden. Alina looked up. My father had another one. Marco's eyes held hers. In them, she saw the truth he had not yet said. Her father had not been a bystander. The dead accountant had not dragged her into Marco's war by accident. Whatever Samuel Vale had hidden, people had killed tonight to find it. Then the SUV screeched to a stop. Alina flew forward, caught by the belt, and Marco's hand braced across the dashboard in front of her. Outside, the windshield, Vale's bakery glowed through the rain. Her beautiful front window was shattered. Sugar-white curtains blew through the broken glass. And on the brick wall beside the door, someone had painted a message in red. Bring the girl to LUCA. Marco went silent, not confused, not surprised enough. Alina turned to him, the ledger open in her lap, her father's name between them. Nina's scream still ringing in her ears. "Luca," she said, "that's your brother, isn't it?" Marco's hand tightened around the gun. "Yes." The bakery door opened from the inside. A man stepped out, holding Nina in front of him, a pistol pressed beneath her chin. Alina stopped breathing. The man smiled across the rain at Marco Voss. And Marco, the most feared don in the city, whispered one word like it had cut him open. "Brother." Chapter 2, The Donna's Penthouse. Alina had never seen a man look at his brother the way Marco Voss looked at Luca. Not with hatred. Hatred was hotter than this. This was winter, drawn into the shape of a gun. Rain sheeted down between them, silvering the broken glass across the sidewalk, dripping from the torn bakery curtains that fluttered through the shattered front window like surrender flags. The warm yellow light inside Vale's bakery spilled onto St. Agnes Street, touching the blood-red message on the brick wall, Nina's terrified face, the pistol pressed beneath her chin, and the smiling man holding her as if she weighed nothing. "Bring the girl to Luca." The girl. Alina's fingers curled around the ledger until the leather cut into her palm. Luca Voss stood under the bakery awning like he had walked out of a painting of a saint right before the painter realized the saint was damned. He was beautiful in a polished, careless way Marco was not. Marco looked carved from punishment. Luca looked poured from charm. Dark blonde hair instead of black, a softer mouth, lighter eyes. A navy suit too elegant for a man using a 24-year-old baker's assistant as a shield. Nina's eyes found Alina, through the rain. Alina moved before thinking. Marco's arm snapped out across her waist, not bruising, not dragging, just stopping her from stepping into the open street and getting herself shot. "Alina," he said under his breath. She twisted against him. "Let me go." "No." "He has Nina. And he wants you." "I don't care." "I do." The words hit with impossible force, quiet as they were. His arm remained firm across her body, his gun angled down but ready, his attention fixed on Luca. Rafe was out of the SUV now, using the open driver's door as cover, weapon drawn. 2 more black vehicles slid out of the rain at either end of the street, like sharks surfacing. Luca laughed. "Always so dramatic, brother." His voice carried through the rain, warm and amused, as if they were meeting outside the bakery for coffee, instead of standing in a street full of broken glass and guns. "You brought half the city for one little pastry girl." Marco did not move. "Let her go." "Which one?" Alina felt the answer in Marco's body before he gave it. A slight tightening, a contained violence. "Both," he said. Luca smiled wider. "You never did know how to negotiate." Nina whimpered as his arm tightened across her chest. Alina's panic turned sharp enough to think with. Luca wanted her, not Nina. Nina was leverage, the ledger was leverage, the message was theater. Every second they stood here, Luca held the stage. Alina forced her breath steady and looked at Nina, not the gun. "Nina, listen to me." Nina's mouth trembled. "I'm sorry." "You have nothing to be sorry for." "I opened the door because he said he was with the police." Alina's heart twisted. Nina always believed people first. It was the thing Alina loved and feared most about her. Luca made a sympathetic sound. Sweet girl, she was very trusting. Marco's voice dropped into something lethal. "Take the gun off her." "You already said that." "I will not say it again." "No, I suppose you won't." Luca tilted his head, studying Alina now. She felt his gaze like oil on skin. Samuel Vale's daughter. I expected someone softer. You broke into my bakery, Alina said. You threatened my friend. You do not get to sound disappointed. Luca's brows lifted. There she is. Marco's arm tightened a fraction. Alina did not step back. A strange calm had settled over her, the kind that came when terror overloaded the body and left only function behind. She could see the street, count distance, count men, count risk. Luca had the gun beneath Nina's chin, but his right shoulder was angled wrong, too comfortable, too certain Marco would not shoot while Nina stood in front of him. He was probably right, but Nina was 5 feet from the bakery door. And behind the counter, if Alina remembered correctly, was the panic button her father had installed years ago after a robbery 3 blocks over. She had never used it. She had almost forgotten it existed. Almost. Nina, Alina said, keeping her voice level. Remember the lemon tarts. Nina blinked through the rain. What? The lemon tarts for Mrs. Bellini. You put them in the wrong case last week. Luca's smile flickered. What are you doing? Alina ignored him. I told you, if there's ever a mistake with an order, you check under the register first. Understanding moved through Nina's eyes, like a match catching. Luca noticed, a second too late. Nina dropped. Not elegantly, not cleanly. She went boneless all at once, knees folding as if fear had finally cut every string. Luca cursed and grabbed for her, but rain had slicked his sleeve, and Nina was smaller, faster, fueled by terror. She hit the wet sidewalk hard and rolled toward the bakery entrance. Marco fired. Not at Luca's body. At the gun. The shot cracked through the rain. Luca shouted as the pistol flew from his hand and skittered across the pavement. Rafe moved at the same instant, and the street erupted. Alina had one glimpse of Marco stepping in front of her before his men surged around the SUV. Someone grabbed her from behind, and she nearly screamed until she heard Rafe bark, "Stay down," and realized he was shielding her with his body while bullets tore sparks from brick and metal. Nina crawled through the broken doorway. Luca vanished behind the corner of the bakery. "Do not kill him," Marco shouted. The command froze half the street. Alina looked at him in disbelief. "Do not kill him." After all that, after the gun under Nina's chin, Marco's face revealed nothing, but his jaw looked cut from stone. "Alive," he snapped. "I want him alive." A black sedan screamed from the alley beside the bakery. Luca threw himself into the back seat as the car fishtailed onto St. Agnes, tires spitting water. One of Marco's men fired at the rear tire. Missed. Another SUV lurched after it, but Marco lifted a fist. "Stop." Rafe stared at him. "Boss." "I said stop." The sedan disappeared into the rain. Alina heard herself breathing. Too fast, too loud, not enough air. Then she remembered Nina and tore away from Rafe. "Alina," Marco called. She ignored him and ran through the broken bakery window because the door was blocked by splintered wood and bent metal. Glass bit through the soles of her shoes. She barely felt it. Inside, her bakery looked violated. The display case was smashed. Cannoli filling smeared the floor. Shelves were overturned, coffee cups shattered, the register drawer ripped open and left hanging like a broken jaw. The warm, sugared air Alina had built her life inside now stank of gunpowder, rain, and fear. "Nina." A shaking hand appeared behind the counter. "Here." Alina dropped to her knees. Nina sat wedged between the counter and the pastry case, arms wrapped around herself. Mascara streaked down both cheeks. A thin line of blood marked her temple, where she must have hit the sidewalk. Elena pulled her into her arms. Nina clung back, sobbing so hard her whole body jerked. "I'm sorry," Nina kept saying. "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." "Stop, you're alive." Elena held her tighter. "That is all that matters, you're alive." "I thought he was going to kill me." "I know." He smiled the whole time. Elena closed her eyes. Marco stepped inside. The bakery seemed to shrink around him. All its warmth and powdered sugar and broken domesticity thrown into brutal contrast by the gun still in his hand. He stopped several feet away, not crowding them, rainwater dripping from his coatless shoulders onto her tile. His gaze moved over Nina, assessing the head wound, the shaking, the absence of blood beyond that. Then to Elena. "Ambulance is coming," he said. Nina flinched at his voice. Elena felt it and shifted slightly, putting herself between Nina and Marco. Marco noticed. Of course he did. Something crossed his face, too quickly to name. He lowered the gun and slid it back beneath his jacket, out of sight. "Nina," he said, quieter now, "my name is Marco. I will not touch you. I will not come closer unless Elena asks me to. There are paramedics on the way. You are safe." Nina stared at him through wet lashes. "You're his brother." Marco's expression did not change. "Yes. You're the bad one, too." Elena's breath caught. Marco accepted the question as if he deserved far worse. "Yes." Nina shrank closer to Elena. He nodded once, not offended, not defensive. "But not to you." The simplicity of that answer bothered Elena more than denial would have, because Nina believed him enough to stop shaking quite so hard. Rafe entered behind him. "Police 2 minutes out. Our people can hold them at the perimeter, but not for long." Marco's gaze stayed on Elena. "You need to leave before they arrive." She laughed once, brittle and humorless. "Of course, because God forbid the police come to a crime scene. They will not protect you. You expect me to believe you will." "Yes." The sheer arrogance nearly steadied her. Elena eased Nina back enough to check her face. "You need a hospital." "No," Nina clutched her wrist. "Don't let." "Ave me. I'm not leaving you." "You have to," Marco said. Elena turned on him. "Do not." He absorbed the warning without a blink. "Luca got away because I let him." The bakery went silent, except for Nina's ragged breathing. Elena rose slowly. "Why?" Marco's eyes were hard. "Because he wanted me to chase him. So the moment I left you here, someone else would come for you." Elena looked at Rafe. He did not look away. That was confirmation enough. Marco stepped closer, then stopped when Elena's shoulders stiffened. Luca did not come alone. He wanted the ledger, yes, but he wanted something more tonight. He wanted to see what I would do when he put a gun to someone innocent in front of you. "Why?" "Because now he knows." Elena's mouth went dry. "Knows what?" Marco's gaze held hers. The answer moved between them, unsaid, heavy and dangerous. He knew Marco cared what happened to her. Maybe before Marco was ready to admit it. Maybe before Elena could afford to. Nina looked from one to the other, pale and dazed. "Elena." Elena forced herself back to action. "You're going with the paramedics. I'll call your sister." "I don't want to be alone." "You won't be." Elena looked at Rafe. "Send someone with her." Rafe's eyes flicked to Marco. That small movement snapped something inside Alina. "No," she said sharply. "Do not look at him. I am asking you. She was hurt because of me. She gets protection too." Marco's voice came from behind her. "Rafe, put 2 men on her. Hospital, then her sister's apartment. No one without my approval gets near either of them." Nina swallowed. "I don't want Mafia men outside my hospital room." "Then they will not stand where you can see them," Marco said. "But they will be there." Alina hated that it was the best option. Hated more that Nina looked relieved. The sirens grew louder. Real ones now, close enough to paint the broken walls in pulses of red and blue. Marco's attention sharpened. "Alina." "I know." She looked around the ruined bakery, and grief hit so hard her knees nearly weakened. "I know." Her father had built the front counter by hand. He had painted the trim blue, because her mother loved Santorini postcards. He had taught Alina how to judge dough by touch in the kitchen before dawn, his big hands guiding hers, his voice warm with pride. This was not only a business. It was the last living room of her childhood. The last honest thing she thought Samuel Vale had left behind. Now glass glittered like ice over the floor, and the wall outside carried Luca's threat in red paint. Original ledger hidden. Her father had left behind more than flour and debt and recipes. He had left behind a loaded gun, and Alina had finally pulled the trigger without knowing it. "Alina," Marco's voice shifted, not softer exactly, but closer to human. "We need to go." She looked at him. "Where?" "My penthouse." "No." His eyes narrowed slightly. "You cannot stay here." "I can stay with Nina." "They know Nina." "I can go to a hotel." "They will check every hotel." "I can go to the police." "You can. You are an adult. You can choose that." His restraint sounded like it hurt him. "But if you do, they will put you in a safe house with officers Luca has probably already paid. And your house is safe, because your criminals are better than his criminals." "Yes." She stared at him. He did not flinch from the ugliness of it. That was one of the worst things about Marco Voss. He did not make darkness pretty. He simply stood in it and asked whether she preferred a polite lie. Nina gripped Alina's hand. "Go with him." Alina turned. "Nina." He shot the gun out of Luca's hand. Nina's voice shook, but her eyes were clearer now. He could have killed him. He didn't. Maybe that's not much, but it's something. Marco's face was unreadable. Alina looked down at their joined hands. Nina's were sticky with blood and rain. Hers too. "I'll check on you," Alina said, "every hour." Nina managed a weak nod. "And when this is over, I want hazard pay." A broken laugh escaped Alina. "Double," she promised. "Triple. Your Mafia drama interrupted my dinner." "Triple." The paramedics burst in through the back with 2 of Marco's men behind them, all motion and questions and practiced urgency. Alina stood back while they checked Nina, asked her name, asked if she had lost consciousness, asked if she could move her fingers. Nina kept looking for Alina, and Alina kept answering with her eyes. "I'm here. I'm here until I can't be." When the police lights filled the front of the bakery, Marco stepped to Alina's side. "Last chance," he said. "If you want them, I will step back." She looked toward the street. 2 uniformed officers stood outside, speaking to one of Marco's men. One of them had bought a birthday cake from her last month. Chocolate hazelnut. His daughter's name was Lily. He laughed too loudly, tipped badly, and now stood beside a crime scene pretending not to notice that Marco Voss controlled the perimeter. Elena stood with a sick, settling finality. The police would take a report. Marco would take responsibility. Those were not the same thing. She clutched the ledger under his jacket. I'm going with you because I choose to, not because you told me to, not because you scared me into it, not because I belong to you. His eyes flicked to her mouth again, brief and dangerous. No, he said, you do not belong to me. The way he said it made the words sound both true and temporary. Elena hated the shiver that moved through her. They left through the rear alley while the paramedics took Nina out the front. Marco walked half a step behind Elena, shielding her from the rain and sightlines with his body. It should have annoyed her. It did annoy her. But she also noticed that he did not touch unless he had to, did not steer her by the elbow, did not push her into the SUV. He opened the door and waited. Choice. A man like him, offering it over and over, was either honor or strategy. Elena could not tell which. The SUV pulled away from the bakery, joining a silent convoy that moved through the rain-slick city like a funeral procession for her old life. For the first 10 minutes, Elena did not speak. She watched storefronts smear into light, watched ordinary people under umbrellas, laughing, arguing, holding takeout containers against their coats. The city went on being itself. Lovers kissed under awnings. A cyclist cursed at traffic. A drunk man sang outside a closed laundromat. Her world had cracked open, and everyone else still had errands. Marco sat beside her with several inches of space between them, speaking quietly into his phone in clipped Italian and colder English. Names, orders, routes, surveillance, hospital, Nina. Rafe drove without looking back. Elena held the ledger on her lap. She did not open it again. Not because she was afraid. Because she was afraid, she would not stop. When Marco ended the call, the silence changed. He looked at her hands first. You are bleeding. Elena glanced down. A cut sliced across the base of her thumb, probably from the bakery glass. Blood had dried over her knuckles and under her nails. It's nothing. It is not nothing, compared to the dead man in Bellini's and my kidnapped employee. Nearly kidnapped, he corrected. She shot him a look. He accepted it, poor word choice. Do you practice sounding that controlled, or is it a medical condition? Rafe made another suspicious cough from the front seat. Marco's mouth almost moved. Not a smile, but the ghost of one quickly exorcised. I learned young. The answer hit a place in Elena she did not want him near. Young. There were wounds inside that word. Ones she did not have time to wonder about. He opened a small compartment in the door and removed a first aid kit. May I clean it? She should have said no. Not because she objected to bandages, but because the thought of his hands on hers in the dark back seat of a moving SUV felt more intimate than it should. Her body was still too alive from terror. Her nerves had not settled. Every sound was too sharp, every brush of fabric too vivid. But the cut stung, and she was tired of pretending she did not need help. Yes, she said. Then, because she needed the boundary spoken, my hand. That's all. Marco's eyes lifted to hers. Your hand, that is all. He took it carefully. His fingers were warm. His palms were rougher than she expected, not the soft hands of a man who only signed orders and ruined lives from behind a desk. There were faint scars across 2 knuckles. a pale line near his wrist. Evidence that the myth of Marco Voss had once been flesh breakable enough to mark. He poured antiseptic over gauze. This will sting. I own a bakery. I burn myself twice a week. Still, he dabbed the cut. Alina hissed. His thumb steadied the side of her hand. Breathe. Do not tell me how to breathe. Then breathe in rebellion. Despite everything, a laugh broke out of her. Small, shocked, almost painful. Marco looked at her, as if the sound had done something unfair to him. Her laughter died. The SUV seemed too small. Rain ticked against the windows. Rafe's eyes stayed dutifully forward. Marco's thumb rested near her pulse, not moving, not claiming, simply there. The space between them filled with every forbidden thing Alina refused to name. You should not look at me like that either, he said quietly. She went still. Like what? Like you are trying to decide whether I am the threat or the shelter. Her throat tightened. Which are you? She asked. His gaze held hers with brutal honesty. Both. That should have ended the pull. It did not. If anything, it made it worse. Because a beautiful lie would have been easier to resist. She knew how to fight charm. She knew how to dismiss arrogance. She did not know what to do with a dangerous man who gave her the truth without polishing the blade first. He wrapped the bandage around her thumb, secured it, and released her Ameti. Aitli. She flexed her fingers. Thank you. You are welcome. The formality made her want to scream, or ask him to touch her again. She looked out the window. The convoy turned onto the private drive of a black glass tower near the river. Alina had seen the building from a distance, rising above the old warehouse district like a blade planted in concrete. Voss Tower. Everyone knew he owned it. Fewer knew he lived there. The underground garage swallowed the vehicles. Security gates closed behind them with a heavy mechanical finality that sounded far too much like a lock. Alina's pulse jumped. Marco noticed, you are not a prisoner. Then why does that sound like a prison gate? Because good security and prison architecture share unpleasant habits. Alina, Rafe said from the front, voice careful. She looked at him in the rearview mirror. His expression was not unkind. No one comes in here without clearance. No one gets to the penthouse unless the boss allows it. That includes Luca. And if I want to leave, Marco answered, you tell me. And then, I ask where. And then, I send protection with you. And if I say no protection, his jaw tightened. Then I try very hard to respect that while explaining why it is a bad idea. She stared at him. He stared back. No threat, no false agreement. Just the boundary between her autonomy and his obsession with keeping her breathing. Fine, she said, but I want a phone that calls people other than you. You will have one. I want to talk to Nina as soon as she is cleared. Yes. I want access to the ledger. His eyes cooled. No. There it was. Alina's chin lifted. Excuse me. The ledger stays with me tonight. The ledger was handed to me by a dying man who may have intended to put a target on your back. The target was already there, and the ledger makes it worse. Then I should know why. You will. When the penthouse is secure, and I know who inside my organization just helped my brother. She folded her arms. You mean when you decide? His gaze sharpened. I mean when I can read it without wondering whether a sniper, a car bomb, or a paid cop will interrupt us. Her stomach tightened despite herself. Rafe parked beside a private elevator. 2 armed guards waited there. Both men straightened when Marco stepped out. Their gazes flicked to Alina, then away. Professional, disciplined, frightening. Marco opened her door. Alina stayed seated. He did not reach in, did not hurry her, did not command. She hated him a little for learning so quickly. "I need the ledger," he said. "No." His eyes darkened. "Alina, I will carry it upstairs." "That is not safe." "Neither are you." A beat. Then he leaned slightly closer, one hand braced on the roof of the SUV, his body blocking the garage from view. The position should have felt crowding. It did, but not in the way she expected. He left space for her to move, enough to get out, enough to refuse, enough for her to understand he knew exactly what power he had and was choosing not to spend it carelessly. "You are right," he said. "I am not safe. But tonight, I am safer than everyone else who wants that book." "I carry it," she repeated. His eyes searched hers. Then he stepped back. "Then carry it." The victory did not feel like victory. It felt like being handed a knife and told the room was full of wolves. Alina got out with the ledger tucked against her ribs beneath Marco's jacket. The guards looked at the book. Marco looked at the guards. They stopped looking. The elevator required Marco's palm, Rafe's code, and a retinal scan that made Alina mutter, "Subtle," under her breath. Marco glanced at her. "I have many gifts. Subtlety is rarely one of them." Self-awareness, how alarming. This time he did smile. "Barely." It changed his face for less than a second and made him devastating. Alina looked away quickly. The elevator rose without stopping. Glass walls revealed the city falling beneath them, rain-threaded lights sprawling toward the river. Alina stood on one side with the ledger. Marco stood on the other. Rafe and one guard stood between them like the universe had decided physical distance might prevent whatever kept snapping taut in the air. It did not. Alina felt Marco's gaze on her reflection in the glass. She kept her eyes on the city. "You said your brother wanted to know what you would do," she said. "Yes." "Now he knows you'll choose me over chasing him." Marco's reflection did not move. "I chose preventing a second attack." "Do you believe that?" "No." The honesty struck again. She turned. "Why me?" Rafe's shoulders shifted. Marco's gaze sharpened toward him. "Leave us when we arrive." "Boss." "Inside perimeter only." Rafe looked as if he wanted to argue. Then the elevator doors opened, and the argument died under the weight of the penthouse. Alina had expected wealth. She had not expected restraint. No gold monstrosities, no velvet vulgarity, no chandelier big enough to prove ins. Security. The penthouse was all dark wood, black stone, smoked glass, and clean lines softened by low amber light. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around the space, showing the city in every direction. Rain moved down the glass like the whole sky was trying to get in. It should have felt cold. It did not. There were books. Actual books, hundreds of them, lining one wall beside a fireplace built into black marble. A half-finished espresso sat on a side table near a leather chair. A chessboard rested by the window, mid-game. On the kitchen island, incongruously, was a bowl of oranges. Alina stepped inside and felt, absurdly, like she had entered the private room behind the myth. not the Don's lair. Marco's home. That made everything worse. Rafe cleared the rooms with 2 guards. Marco waited by the elevator until they returned. All clear. Hospital, Marco asked. Nina Rosso is being treated for a mild concussion and a laceration. She's scared, but stable. 2 men on site, 2 on her sister. Sister is pissed. Alina exhaled for the first time since the bakery. Good. Rafe's mouth twitched. Yeah, she threatened to stab Matteo with a cafeteria fork if he came within 10 feet. Tell Matteo to stay 11 feet away, Marco said. Rafe nodded. Then his expression hardened. We found Bellini in the walk-in freezer, alive, bruised. He says Luca's men came in through the service entrance 20 minutes before Alina arrived. Dario was already with them. Alina's stomach turned. Dario led them there. We don't know. Marco's eyes went to the ledger. He was either running to me or running from someone else. Or both, Alina said. Marco nodded once. Or both. Rafe looked between them, then back to Marco. You sure about this? No, Marco said. Rafe did not ask what this meant. Alina did not either. She was afraid she already knew. When the elevator doors closed behind Rafe, and the guards retreated to posts she could not see, the penthouse went terribly quiet. Alina stood in the middle of it, wearing Marco's jacket over her blood-spattered bakery dress, holding a dead man's ledger, with rainwater drying in her hair and glass embedded somewhere in the sole of her right shoe. Marco looked at her shoes. You are hurt. She glanced down. A thin red line marked the tile where she had stepped. Oh, the word sounded stupid. Now that Nina was alive, now that they were behind reinforced doors and armed guards, her body had apparently decided it was finished pretending to be brave. Pain came rushing back. Her foot, her cut hand, her bruised ribs where the seat belt had caught her, the throbbing ache behind her eyes. Marco moved one step, stopped. Alina. I'm fine. You are bleeding on my floor. It's a very dramatic floor. It can handle it. Alina. The way he said her name, this time took the fight out of her. She looked up. His face had changed, not softened. She was beginning to think Marco Voss did not soften so much as redirect his intensity. But there was something there now she did not know how to defend against. Concern, controlled until it looked almost severe. I need to take the glass out, he said, or call a doctor. No doctor. Why? Because if one more stranger touches me tonight, I might break something. His gaze held hers, then me. The words entered the air and stayed there. Then me. Alina knew what he meant. First aid, her foot, the glass, nothing more. Her body heard something else. So did his. She saw it in the sudden stillness across his shoulders. The way his eyes dropped to her mouth and back up with disciplined speed. The way his hands remained at his sides, open, visibly empty, as if he understood that power could become pressure without a single explicit threat. Her voice came out lower. Just my foot. His answer was immediate. Just your foot. And the cut if it needs it. Yes. And you stop if I say stop. Always. The word should not have moved through her like heat. It did. He gestured toward the kitchen island. Sit. She gave him a look. Please, he added grimly. That almost made her smile. Almost. Alina crossed to the island, trying not to limp. She failed. Marco noticed and said nothing. When she reached the stool, he pulled it out for her, then stepped back. She climbed onto it awkwardly, the ledger still clutched against her chest. Marco looked at it. "Are you going to hold that while I remove glass from your foot?" "Yes." Good to know where trust stands. At ground level, bleeding. He huffed a quiet breath that might have been amusement and crouched in front of her. Alina's entire body went alert. Not because she was afraid of him hurting her, because Marco Voss on his knees before her was the sort of image that could ruin a woman's common sense. He placed a small medical kit on the floor, then looked up. "May I remove your shoe?" She swallowed, yes. His fingers curved around her ankle with clinical care. No drag, no caress, no indulgence. Still, heat climbed her calf as he eased the shoe off. A sliver of glass had cut through the thin sole and lodged near the ball of her foot. He exhaled through his nose. "This will hurt." "Most things tonight have." His eyes flicked up. "Too much." She had not meant it to sound vulnerable. He reached for tweezers. "Hold the edge of the counter." "I'll manage." "Alina." She sighed and gripped the island with her free hand. He removed the glass in one swift motion. Pain flashed white-hot. Alina bit down on a curse. Marco's hand closed around her ankle just enough to keep her still. "Done. You're annoyingly good at that. At removing glass. At being useful." He cleaned the cut, his mouth set in a grim line. "I have had practice. With women bleeding on your floor. With people bleeding in places they should have been safe." The answer landed heavily. Alina looked at the dark crown of his head, the careful bend of his shoulders. "Is that your wound?" He went still. She should not have said it. She had no right to ask. Not tonight. Not while his brother was hunting her and her father's name sat in a ledger between them like a curse. But Marco did not pretend not to understand. "One of them," he said. "A dangerous answer. An honest answer." "What's your secret?" he asked, wrapping gauze around her foot. She stiffened. "Excuse me." "You asked about my wound." "I didn't ask for a trade." "No, I am asking for myself." His voice stayed level, but the air shifted. Alina looked past him to the windows. The city blurred beyond the rain. "I don't have secrets." Marco secured the bandage and looked up at her from his knees. The position made his gaze more devastating, not less. "Alina," he said, "everyone has secrets." She thought of her father burning papers in the bakery oven, of the storage unit address, of the shoebox under her bed filled with unpaid invoices and final notices she had never shown Nina, of the bank letter giving her 30 days before foreclosure proceedings began. She thought of the fact that 2 months ago, after Marco had come into her bakery and looked at her like he saw too much, she had searched his name online for an hour and then hated herself for it. "My secret is practical," she said. "Boring. Most dangerous secrets are." She gave a bitter laugh. "The bakery is nearly bankrupt." Marco's expression did not change, which somehow made confession easier. "My father left debt, more than I knew. I kept thinking if I worked harder, took more orders, did the wedding cakes myself, stopped sleeping like a normal person, I could fix it." Her throat tightened. "The bank called yesterday. I have 30 days before they start taking pieces." Marco rose slowly. He did not offer money. For some reason, that made her want to cry. "Luca knows," he said. Her stomach dropped. "What?" "If your financials are exposed, he can use them." He can make it look like you took money, that you killed Dario for the ledger, that your father's debts became yours." Alina slid off the stool too fast and winced as pain shot through her foot. "No, I did not kill anyone." "I know. You know, how comforting. Will the police know? Will whoever owns them know?" Marco's silence answered. She paced despite the pain, gripping the ledger so hard her bandaged thumb throbbed. "So now I'm not only a witness. I'm a suspect waiting to happen." "Yes." "Could you lie at least once in a comforting direction?" "I could. I do not think you would respect it." She turned on him. "Do not talk to me like you know me." "I know pieces. You know my name. You know my father. You know my debt. Apparently everyone knows something about me except me. That is why you are angry." "No," her voice rose. "I am angry because a man died in front of me, because my friend had a gun to her throat, because my father might have been involved with men like you, and he never told me. Because you keep standing there like the answer to everything is to put walls around me and call it safety." Marco's face hardened. "Walls are the reason you are alive tonight. And cages are the reason birds stop singing." The sentence hit something. She saw it, a flicker behind his eyes, gone quickly, but not quickly enough. "What?" she demanded. "Nothing." "No, you do not get to dissect me and then hide." His mouth tightened. "My mother used to say something similar." The anger drained out of Alina too, abruptly, leaving her unsteady. Marco turned away, but not before she saw the cost of those words. "Used to," she said quietly. He crossed to the windows and looked out over the city. "She is dead." "I'm sorry." "Do not be. You did not kill her." The answer was too sharp, too revealing. Alina remained still. There it was, one of his wounds, not the full shape but an edge. Marco Voss, feared Don, city king, man who carried guns and issued orders with ice in his voice, had once been a son unable to save his mother. She understood, unwillingly, how a wound like that could become walls. He turned back before. Compassion could get too close. "You need to shower. There are clothes in the guest room. The kitchen is stocked. You can call Nina on the secure phone. I will read the ledger." "No, we will read the ledger." "Elena." "Wait." The word cracked through the penthouse. Marco stared at her for a long moment. "You should rest. You should stop mistaking exhaustion for obedience." Another almost smile threatened his mouth. Then his phone rang. He answered without looking away from her. Yes. Whatever he heard stripped the expression from his face. "Put it on the wall screen." A large black panel above the fireplace came to life. Security footage filled it. Alina's bakery. Interior. Time-stamped 20 minutes before her arrival at Bellini's. Her father appeared on the screen. Alina stopped breathing. Not actually her father. A recording. Grainy, old, pulled from some hidden camera angle she had never known existed. Samuel Vale stood behind the bakery counter, younger by at least 10 years, shoulders broad, hair more black than gray. He was arguing with a man Alina recognized only because he had pointed a gun at Nina less than an hour ago. Luca, younger, smiling, already wrought. There was no sound. Alina moved toward the screen as if pulled. Her father slapped an envelope onto the counter. Luca shoved it back. Samuel shook his head hard. Luca leaned in and said something that made Samuel go very still. Then Samuel reached beneath the counter. For one mad second, Alina thought he was reaching for a weapon. He was. He pulled out a ledger. Not the one in her hands. Older brown leather, frayed at the corners. Original ledger, hidden. Her father had kept it in the bakery. Alina pressed a hand to her mouth. The footage cut. The screen went black. She turned slowly toward Marco. How do you have that? Marco's expression was carved shut. I don't. Then who sent it? His phone buzzed again. This time, the message appeared on the wall screen because the feed was still connected. Unknown number. You always were too sentimental, Marco. She looks just like her mother. Alina read it once. Then again. Her mother had died when Alina was 8. Cancer. Quiet decline. Hospital sheets. Her father crying in the pantry when he thought Alina was asleep. Marco's eyes moved from the message to her face. What does that mean? Alina asked. His silence chilled her more than the text. Marco. He took the phone off speaker and typed something fast. Then he set it face down on the table as if the message had contaminated it. Alina, he said carefully, what was your mother's name? The question made no sense. You know my father, my debt, my bakery's security footage from a decade ago, but not my mother. What was her name? Isabel. His face changed. Not much, not enough for anyone else to read. Enough for her. Alina's pulse slowed into something thick and frightened. What? Marco said nothing. What? She repeated. He looked at the ledger in her arms, then at the dark screen, then at her. I knew an Isabel once, he said. Alina laughed because the alternative was panic. Half the city knows an Isabel. Not this one. The penthouse seemed to tilt. Rain moved down the windows. Somewhere behind a hidden wall, an elevator hummed. Alina's foot throbbed beneath the bandage. Her father's old secrets pressed in from every direction. You're saying my mother knew your family. I am saying Luca wants us asking that question. That is not an answer. No, Marco said. It is a warning. His phone rang again. He ignored it. Alina hugged the ledger tighter, suddenly cold beneath his jacket. Why would your brother know what my mother looked like? Marco's eyes held hers, and for the first time since she had met him, he looked as if he truly did not know whether truth or silence would hurt her more. I do not know, he said. The phone stopped ringing. Then the penthouse lights went out. Darkness swallowed the room. For half a second, there was only rain, breathing, and the sudden scream of alarms from somewhere far below. Marco moved before Alina did. Alina downed. This time, she dropped without arguing. Glass exploded from the far window as a bullet punched through the penthouse and buried itself in the wall where her head had been. Marco came down over her, shielding her body with his as the city lights flickered through the broken pane, and the emergency system bathed the room in red. His mouth was close to her ear. His voice was the calmest thing in the world. They're inside. Chapter 3, The Brother in the Ledger. The bullet had missed Alina by less than the width of Marco Voss's hand. She knew because that hand was pressed flat against the marble beside her face, fingers spread wide, knuckles scraped from where he had thrown himself over her and taken the force of the fall on his own body. Shattered glass rained across his back. A cold blade of night air sliced through the penthouse. Alarms screamed from the walls, pulsing red light. Over the black floor, the overturned medical kit, the ledger trapped beneath Alina's ribs, and Marco's face inches above hers. For one suspended second, The world narrowed to the heat of him, sheltering her, and the dead calm in his eyes. Then a second shot punched through the broken window. Marco rolled with her. Not gently, not elegantly. He moved like violence had taught his body before language had, dragging her behind the kitchen island as stones splintered where they had been. Alina hit the floor hard, pain flashing through her bandaged foot, but Marco's arm locked around her waist and took most of the impact. "Stay low," he said. The emergency lights painted him in hellish red. Alina clutched the ledger to her chest. "You said they're inside." "They are." "How do you know?" "The shooter had the angle from my east terrace." Her breath stopped. "Your terrace?" "My private terrace." The implication crawled cold through her. Not a sniper from another building. Not a random shot through the glass. Someone had entered Voss Tower, bypassed the garage, the elevators, the codes, the men with guns, and reached the penthouse balcony. Someone inside Marco's fortress had opened the door. Marco drew his gun and looked at her. "Can you move?" "Yes." "Alina." "I said yes." "Can you run?" The answer should have been yes. Pride wanted yes. Her foot throbbed hard enough to turn her stomach. "No." A flicker of something crossed his face, not frustration, not impatience. Calculation wrapped around concern. "Then you hold on to me." "Marco." Not a command. He shifted closer, voice low enough to cut beneath the alarm. A choice with very bad alternatives. Another shot cracked through the penthouse. The bowl of oranges on the kitchen island exploded above them. Fruit bursting open, bright flesh scattering across black marble like torn little suns. Alina flinched. Marco's hand came to the back of her head, shielding without forcing her down. "Look at me." She did. "You are not helpless," he said. "You are injured, targeted, and in my house with men trying to kill you. Those are facts. Here is another fact. I know how to get you through this room alive." Her pulse pounded in her ears. There it was again. Not soft comfort, not the pretty lie that everything was fine. A brutal map drawn in truth. "What do you need me to do?" she asked. His gaze sharpened with approval, so sudden it felt like a touch. "Keep the ledger under your body. Do not let go. When I lift you, hook your arm around my neck. If I tell you to close your eyes, you close them. If I tell you not to look back, you do not look back." "Where are we going?" "My office." "Your office is safer than the kitchen." "My office is not my office." Before she could question that, he holstered the gun, slid one arm beneath her knees and the other behind her back, and lifted her. Alina grabbed his shoulders on instinct, the ledger crushed between them. Pain sparked through her foot. The rest of her body registered something far more dangerous. The solid heat of his chest, the power in his arms, the way he held her like she weighed nothing and mattered too much. "Do not romanticize this," she snapped, because terror made her cruel and his nearness made her stupid. His mouth brushed close to her temple as he turned his body to shield hers from the shattered window. "Believe me, Alina, this is not how I imagined carrying you." The words hit low. Her grip tightened around his neck. He went still for half a breath, just long enough for the sentence to become a room they both stood inside. Then the elevator doors at the far end of the penthouse began to open. Marco moved. He ran with her in his arms while the doors slid apart and gunfire burst from the elevator vestibule. Bullets tore through leather, glass, wood. Elena buried her face against his throat despite herself. He smelled like rain, smoke, blood, and the clean, dark spice that clung to his skin. His body jerked once, but he did not slow. "Marco, I'm fine." He was lying. She heard it. A bullet had grazed him, or glass had cut him, or something had gone through flesh, because his breath changed. Not much. Enough. He slammed his shoulder into a panel beside the bookshelf. The wall opened. Elena had no time to process the mechanism, the hidden seam, the dark passage beyond. Marco carried her through and kicked the panel shut behind them. The gunfire became muffled thunder. Red emergency light vanished, replaced by a narrow strip of white along the floor. Silence closed in. Not safety. A different kind of danger. The hidden corridor was narrow and windowless, lined in steel, cold enough that Elena shivered beneath Marco's jacket. He carried her 3 more steps, then set her down on a bench built into the wall with care that seemed almost out of place after the violence. The second her feet touched the floor, he turned away. Elena saw the blood. Not hers. It streaked down the left side of his shirt from a tear near his ribs, black. In the dim light, too much to be nothing, and not enough to slow a man who had learned to ignore pain as a survival skill. "You're hit. Grazed. That is a bullet word for bleeding." "Elena." "No." She shoved the ledger onto the bench and reached for him. "Sit." His eyes narrowed. "This is not the time. You just carried me through gunfire with a hole in your side. Sit down." For a moment, he looked almost offended. Then, astonishingly, he sat. Not because he was weak. Because she had told him to, and some part of him, some buried, contradictory part, beneath the Dawn and the Killer and the King, allowed it. Elena dropped to her knees in front of him and immediately regretted the movement when pain shot through her foot. She ignored it and pulled open his blood-dark shirt with shaking hands. He caught her wrist. "Elena." "What?" His grip was firm but not trapping. "You do not need to do this." "I know." His eyes moved over her face. "Do you want to?" The question was absurd. There were armed men in his penthouse. Nina was in a hospital. Her father's name was in a dead man's ledger. The man asking for consent to let her clean his bullet graze had blood on his shirt, and a gun under his jacket, and enemies inside his own walls. And still the question mattered. "Yes," she said, "I want to help." He released her wrist. The wound was a graze, technically. A cruel, torn line along his ribs where the bullet had kissed skin hard enough to open him. Elena used gauze from a wall-mounted emergency kit he pointed to with one silent nod, then pressed it to the cut. Marco's jaw tightened. "Hurts?" she asked. "Yes." She looked up in surprise. His mouth tilted without humor. "I did not say I would be noble about it." "You are being annoyingly noble about it." "No, noble men do not have panic rooms behind bookshelves. Practical men do. I am not practical either." "What are you, then?" His eyes held hers. A man could have lied beautifully in that moment. He could have said protector, monster, necessary evil. All the dramatic things men like him probably said to women who mistook darkness for depth. Marco said tired. The word entered her chest like a blade. She pressed harder with the gauze, because she did not know what else to do with the sudden ache in her. "Good," she said, voice unsteady. "Maybe tired men make fewer stupid decisions." He watched her hands. You think my decisions are stupid. I think not killing Luca at the bakery was either brilliant or unforgivable, and I haven't decided which. His expression closed. There, the brother in the wound. The real one. Outside the hidden corridor, the muffled gunfire stopped. Elena froze. Marco turned his head, listening. The quiet that followed felt worse. His phone vibrated. He pulled it out, saw the screen, and answered. Rafe. Elena could not hear the other side clearly. Only a low, urgent voice. Marco's face hardened with each word. How many? Pause. Names. Another pause. Lock down the lower floors. No one leaves. I want every access log from the last 6 hours, alive if possible. His gaze flicked briefly to Elena. Yes, she is with me. He ended the call. She waited. He did not speak. Marco. 3 men are dead in my living room. Her stomach dipped. Your men. 2 mine, 1 Luca's. I'm sorry. His eyes moved toward the sealed wall. Sorry does not resurrect loyalty. No, but silence doesn't honor it either. That landed. She saw it, a small shift at the edge of his mouth. Not softness, but acknowledgement. Rafe found a maintenance badge on Luca's man, Marco said. Issued yesterday. By who? My building security. Someone inside helped him. Yes. Someone you trust. Marco's silence answered. Elena leaned back against the opposite wall, suddenly exhausted. The narrow corridor forced proximity, whether either of them wanted it or not. Her knees were inches from his. His blood was on her fingers. His jacket was still around her shoulders. The ledger sat between them like a third heartbeat. Why would Luca do this? She asked. Not the money, not the murder, this. Coming into your home, putting Nina in front of you, sending that message about my mother. What does he want from you? Marco leaned his head back against the steel wall. For the first time, he looked not weaker but younger. The red emergency light did not reach here. Without it, without the skyline and the men and the weapons, the lines of him changed. Still dangerous, still controlled, but flesh. Breakable, human in a way that felt private enough that Elena should have looked away. She did not. Luca wants to prove I am my father's son, Marco said. Elena stilled. Are you? His laugh was quiet and without humor. That depends who you ask. I'm asking you. No. The answer was immediate. Too immediate. A boundary, a prayer. Then why does Luca think he can prove it? Marco looked at her. Because my father solved every problem by deciding who belonged to him and who did not. The air changed. Elena felt the words move under her skin. People, she asked. Territory, men, women, children, blood. Marco's jaw flexed. My mother. Elena's throat tightened. She was 24 when she married him, he said. An adult. A choice made under pressure from families who considered pressure tradition. She learned very quickly that the ring was not a promise. It was a lock. Elena said nothing. There were some confessions that should not be interrupted. I was 10 when she tried to leave, Marco continued. Luca was 8. My father found her before she reached the airport. He brought her home. After that, she stopped singing. Cages are the reason birds stop singing. Elena understood now why the words had struck him. She died when I was 16, he said. Officially, pneumonia. Unofficially, grief with bruises. Anger rose in Elena so fast it burned. Did he kill her? Marco's eyes were flat, not with his own hands. That is not an answer. It is the only one I have. She looked down at the blood on her fingers. His blood, not his father's, not Luca's, his. And Luca, she asked. Luca loved him. It sounded impossible. Marco saw her face. That is what men like my father do best. They make love and fear use the same door. Alina's chest hurt. She thought of Samuel Vale burning papers. Samuel Vale hiding ledgers. Samuel Vale teaching her to knead dough, tie ribbons, trust numbers, because numbers did not lie unless people forced them to. What if my father was one of those men too? She whispered. Marco's gaze sharpened. Alina. What if everything I thought was good was just ignorance? No, you don't know. I know a man can do wrong and still love his daughter. The words were too gentle. She hated them. She needed them. The ledger drew her eyes. Then we read it, she said. Now. Marco's expression hardened again. You are hurt. So are you. I have enemies in my house. And the answer may be in that book. The answer may break you. Alina reached for the ledger, then let it. He caught the edge before she could open it. For a second, their hands were on the same leather cover, his larger, blood-streaked fingers brushing her bandaged thumb. The contact was small. It went through her like a pulse. You asked what my father did to my mother, he said. I will not become that kind of man by letting you mistake shock for readiness. Alina looked at him. Really looked. The tension between them had been danger, attraction, friction, fury. Now it turned deeper and more frightening, because beneath his control was not only desire, it was terror, not a violence. He knew violence too well to fear it properly. He feared becoming the thing he hated. That was the first time Alina understood the shape of his restraint. You don't get to decide what I can survive, she said, quieter now. But you can ask. His hand flexed on the ledger. Then he released it. Are you ready to read page 72 and whatever comes after it? He asked. Knowing it may change what you believe about your father, your mother, and why Luca wants you. No command. No cage. A door. Alina inhaled until her ribs hurt. Yes. Marco nodded. They opened the ledger together. The first pages were columns of transactions, coded initials, dates stretching back years. Some were recent. Some were old enough that Alina had been a child when they were written. Marco leaned closer, one arm braced on his knee, the torn edge of his shirt loose over the bandage she had pressed to his side. He smelled like blood and expensive soap. Alina hated that she noticed. Dario kept 2 sets of codes, Marco said. One for amounts, one for obligations. Obligations. Favors, blackmail, protection, debts that do not appear in banks. That's charming. It is effective. You say that like you're not disgusted. I can be both. She glanced at him. He was studying the page, not her. But the answer lodged somewhere in her chest. Both. The threat and the shelter. The criminal and the man who asked permission before touching her foot. The dawn and the tired son of a woman who had stopped singing. Alina turned the page. Then another. Her father's name appeared again, near the bottom of page 68. S. Vale, custodian, original ledger. ISABEL transfer. Alina's breath caught. Marco saw it. Alina. Keep reading. He did. The next entries were worse. Not numbers now, but notes in Dario's precise handwriting. Samuel Vale retained first ledger after Voss SR. Death. Refused transfer to LV claimed debt paid through Isabel arrangement. Threatened exposure if bakery harmed. Alina stared at the words until they blurred. Isabel arrangement, she whispered. Marco's face had gone dangerously still. What does that mean? She asked. I don't know. Yes, you do. I do not. Marco. His eyes met hers, and the pain there was too raw to be performance. I swear to you, I do not. A door slammed somewhere beyond the hidden wall. Both of them froze. Marco picked up his gun. The sound did not repeat. After a moment, he lowered the weapon by a fraction. We should move. No, Alina's voice shook. No, I need to know. She flipped to page 72. The name Luca Voss appeared halfway down the page. Not initials. Full name. Luca Voss, unauthorized dispersals. Shell accounts. Morty Channel, Bellini's back room. Beneath it were dates, amounts, names. Dario, Bellini. 2 judges Alina recognized from newspaper photos. A police captain. A shipping company that appeared 3 times. And one line that made Marco go completely still. Luca Voss contracted hit on decont to recover ledger. Secondary objective. Secure Alina Vale alive. Alive? The word pulsed on the page. Alina's skin turned cold. He didn't want me dead. No. He wanted me taken. Marco's hand closed around the edge of the bench. The steel groaned softly beneath his grip. Alina read the next line. Do not kill Evie until original is located. Possible maternal key. Maternal key. Her mother again. What am I? Alina whispered. Marco's voice was rough. You are Alina. The answer broke something in her. Not because it was enough. Because it was not. She shoved the ledger at his chest and stood too quickly. Pain shot through her foot, but rage carried her over it. No, don't do that. Marco rose with her. Do what? Make it sound simple. Make me sound like a person when everyone else has apparently been treating me like a key, a ledger, a debt, a problem to secure alive, until they can unlock whatever my mother hid. You are a person. Am I? Her voice cracked, and she hated herself for it. Because Dario knew my name. Luca knows my mother's face. You knew my father. My bakery is almost gone. Nina was almost killed. And now this book says I'm useful because of a dead woman who tucked me into bed and sang old songs and never told me she was connected to your blood-soaked family. Marco stepped closer, then stopped himself. That restraint, that constant conscious restraint, only made her angrier because it made him harder to turn into the villain she needed. Say something, she demanded. What do you want me to say? The truth. The truth is that my brother wants you alive, and that terrifies me more than if he wanted you dead. The words landed between them. Alina's breath hitched. Marco's control fractured by a hair. Dead is simple, he said, voice low. Dead has a direction. Dead means I stand between you and the bullet. Alive means he has a use for you. Alive means he may know something I do not. Alive means every secret your father buried is now tied to every secret my family killed to keep buried. And what do you want? She whispered. His gaze moved over her face. Slowly, not like a man inventorying property, like a man denying himself water while burning alive. I want you somewhere no one can reach you. That sounds like a cage. It would be. The honesty cut. I want to say I would never put you in one. His mouth tightened. I do not know if that is true. Alina went very still. There, she said, there he is. Marco's face hardened. Who? The man I should be afraid of. Yes. He did not deny it. That was what undid her composure. Not threat, not seduction, admission. Marco Voss stood in front of her wounded and armed, with his own house breached and his brother hunting her, and confessed the ugliest part of himself because she had asked for truth. Alina's anger had nowhere clean to go. You don't get to claim honesty and then use it as permission to control me. No, you don't get to call me yours because you're scared. His eyes darkened. No, he said again. And if I walk out, you will not get far on that foot. Marco. His jaw flexed. I would follow. There it was. Obsession stripped of manners. Alina should have stepped back. She did not. And if I told you to stop following? His silence lasted 1 second too long. Her chest tightened. He looked away first. Then I would have to become better very quickly. The answer was raw enough to quiet her. The corridor seemed narrower now. Too cold and too hot at once. The alarms had stopped. The house beyond the wall remained dangerously silent. Alina could hear her own breath and his, uneven for reasons that had less to do with blood loss than either of them would admit. Don't claim me unless you trust me, she said. The words came from somewhere deep, somewhere she had not known she was guarding. Marco's gaze snapped back. Alina's heart kicked hard. She should not have said it like that. Claim. The word tasted dangerous. Intimate, not legal, not logical, not safe. It belonged to old stories and darker fantasies, to the pulse beneath civilized language. It belonged to the way his eyes tracked her injuries, to the way his body placed itself between hers and every threat, to the way she had felt him above her while bullets shattered glass and still known he would ask before touching her mouth. Marco took one slow step close. Sir, Alina did not retreat. You think trust is easy for me? He asked. No. You think wanting to lock every door between you and my brother is about pride. I think it's about fear. His eyes burned. Yes. The admission stripped the air from her lungs. He took another step. Still enough space to move. Still enough room to refuse. Alina, he said, voice rough now. If I claim anything, it will not be your obedience. Her pulse beat everywhere. What would it be? Your trust. His gaze dropped to her mouth, then returned to her eyes like discipline had a blade at his throat. Your choice. Your yes, if you ever give it. She swallowed. It was not fair, the way fear and want could occupy the same body without canceling each other out. She was furious. Injured. Grieving a father she was beginning not to know. Terrified of a brother who wanted her alive for reasons hidden in her mother's past. And she wanted Marco to kiss her. Not because he had power. Because he was fighting it. Because every inch of him looked built to take. And every choice he made with her had been restraint. She hated that distinction. She needed it. You're bleeding, she said. I know. You're impossible. Yes. You frighten me. His face changed just enough, I know. But not the way he does. Marco did not move. Alina took the final step herself. That mattered. She wanted it to matter. She stood close enough that the ledger pressed between them, old leather and blood and secrets keeping their bodies apart. Marco's hands stayed at his sides. His breathing deepened once, controlled with effort. Elena, do not say my name like a warning. It is a warning. His voice was almost a growl now, but not cruel, never cruel. To me. Heat moved through her, slow and devastating. I want to know something real, she whispered, before the next lie finds me. His eyes searched hers. Ask, if I kiss you, will you use it against me? A flash of pain crossed his face. No. If I stop. I stop. If I change my mind afterward. You changed your mind. If I need space, you will have it. She believed him. That might have been the most dangerous thing of all. Elena lifted her hand and touched the scar at the edge of his mouth. Marco's eyes closed for half a second. The reaction was so controlled, so violently restrained, that it felt more intimate than any groan would have. She brushed her thumb along his lower lip, felt the warmth of his breath against her skin, the tremor he locked down before it could become movement. Tell me yes, she said. His eyes opened. Yes. Elena kissed him. The moment their mouths met, something in the corridor changed shape. Marco did not seize her, did not crush her against the wall, did not make the kiss a conquest because conquest would have been easy, expected, cheap. He stood still for the first impossible second and let her set the terms, let her learn the heat of his mouth, the harsh catch in his breath, the way his control shook beneath her lips. Then she made a small sound against him. Not fear. Want. His restraint fractured. One hand rose to her jaw, not gripping, simply holding as if her face were something breakable and sacred and infuriatingly desired. The other settled at her waist over his jacket, broad and warm, giving her every chance to step back. She did not. She moved closer. Marco made a low sound in his chest, and the kiss deepened into something darker. Not rushed, not sloppy. A slow, devastating claiming of breath that was only claiming because she opened to it, because she fisted her hand in his ruined shirt and pulled him nearer, because the world beyond the wall was full of betrayal and blood, and for one stolen moment, she wanted to feel alive inside her own skin. His thumb stroked once along her cheek. The tenderness nearly broke her. Elena pulled back first, breath unsteady. Marco stopped immediately. His hand remained at her waist for one heartbeat, then lifted away. Her body protested. Her pride approved. His eyes were darker now, mouth slightly parted, control visibly rebuilt piece by piece. Are you all right? He asked. She almost laughed. Instead, she nodded. Yes. Words. The echo of earlier struck through her. Yes, she said, I'm all right. Regret. She looked at his mouth, at the blood on his shirt, at the ledger between them. Not yet. A rough breath left him. It might have been a laugh. It might have been pain. The phone in his pocket vibrated again, violent against the silence. Marco did not move to answer it. Elena did. She reached into his jacket, removed the phone, and held it out. The next lie is calling. His gaze flicked over her face. Then he took it. Rafe, he said. Elena watched him listen. The change was immediate. Whatever heat had lived in the corridor froze into command. His spine straightened. His eyes emptied. Marco Voss returned, but Elena could see the man beneath him now, and that made the mask more frightening, not less. Send him in. Marco said. He ended the call. Elena's stomach tightened. Who? Rafe found the security officer who issued the badge. Alive? Yes. And he says Luca did not bribe him. Then who did? Marco looked toward the sealed wall. I did. Elena stared. What? Not me personally. My authorization code. That's impossible. No. The word was flat. A new kind of cold moved through her. Someone used your code. Yes. Who has it? Me, Rafe, a pause, and one other person. Elena already knew. She did not want to. Luca, she said. Marco shook his head. Her breath snagged. No, he said, my grandmother. The name meant nothing to Elena, and everything to him. She saw it in his face, that same old wound drawing breath. Octavia Voss, he said, my father's mother. The woman who taught Luca that love and fear used the same door. The hidden wall clicked. Marco moved in front of Elena, gun drawn. The panel opened from the other side. Rafe stood there, grim and rain-soaked, with one hand around the arm of an older man in a security uniform whose face was gray with terror. Behind them, the penthouse had become a battlefield of broken glass and red emergency light. Rafe's eyes moved to Elena, then Marco, then the blood on Marco's shirt, then the ledger between them. If he noticed the changed air, he was smart enough not to show it. The officer says the access request came from the old house, Rafe said. Marco's face went deadly still. Elena stepped around him, despite the gun, despite the ache in her foot. What old house? Rafe looked at Marco. Elena's patience snapped. Everyone needs to stop looking at him before answering me. Rafe's mouth tightened. The Voss family estate. The one my grandmother has not left in 6 years, Marco said. The security officer trembled. I thought it was approved. The code was valid. The voice was hers. Voice? Elena asked. Marco's eyes narrowed. You spoke to Octavia. The officer shook his head frantically. A recording. Message only. It said the girl was to be allowed into the tower, then kept there until Mr. Voss arrived. That Luca's men were authorized to retrieve the old book if she had it. Elena's skin crawled. Marco's gun lowered by 1 inch. His voice was soft now. Too soft. Say that again. The officer's eyes filled with tears. She said to retrieve the old book. Elena clutched the ledger. Marco turned to her slowly. The ledger Dario gave you is not the old book, he said. No, your father's ledger. She remembered the storage unit address. Original ledger hidden. The bakery footage. Her father pulling the older ledger from beneath the counter. Maternal key. Possible maternal key. A sick realization unfolded between them. Luca doesn't just want this ledger, Elena said. Marco's face was carved from fury. He wants you to find the first one for him. Rafe's phone rang. He answered, listened, and looked at Elena. What? She demanded. Rafe's voice went carefully neutral. Hospital team just checked in. Nina is stable. Her sister arrived. Relief hit so hard Elena nearly swayed. But, Marco asked. Rafe's jaw tightened. Nina said Luca told her to give Elena a message when she woke up. Elena could barely force the words out. What message? Rafe looked at her, then at Marco. Elena has until midnight tomorrow, he said. Bring the original ledger to Bellini's, or Luca sends the police enough evidence to make Samuel Vale look like the traitor who started all of this. Elena's stomach dropped. Marco's eyes became lethal. Rafe continued, grim as death. And if Marco comes alone, Luca kills the only person left who knows what Isabel Vale really was. The room went silent. Elena's hand found the edge of the ledger and held on. Marco turned toward the shattered window, toward the city that had become a map of enemies, then back to her. "No," he said. Elena lifted her chin. "Yes." His gaze sharpened. "You are not walking into a midnight meeting with Luca. I'm not walking into it alone." His jaw flexed. "You are not bait." "No." She stepped closer, ignoring the pain, ignoring Rafe, ignoring the terrified guard and the blood and the broken glass. "I'm the person he needs. I'm the person my father dragged into this from the grave. I'm the person whose mother apparently had a secret worth killing for." Her voice shook, but it did not break. "And you told me you wanted my trust." Marco's eyes burned. Elena held his stare. "Then trust me," she said. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then Marco Voss, dawn of a broken empire, wounded brother of a traitor, dangerous man with blood on his shirt and restraint in his hands, looked at Elena Vale as if she had just become the most terrifying choice of his life. "All right," he said. Rafe cursed under his breath. Marco did not look away from Elena. "We set the trap," he said, "together." The word moved through her like a vow and a warning. Together. Somewhere beyond the shattered glass, the city rain kept falling, washing blue into the streets, hiding tracks, polishing lies. And in Elena's hands, the ledger opened by itself beneath the weight of her grip, its pages falling to one final line she had not seen before. Isabel Vale was never her real name. Chapter 4, Midnight Betrayal. Isabel Vale was never her real name. The sentence sat on the ledger page, like a blade left on white linen. Elena read it once, twice, a third time slower, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something less impossible if she punished them with enough attention. They did not. The ink remained steady. Dario's careful handwriting did not tremble. Her mother's false name did not become true again. Across the shattered penthouse, Marco stood utterly still. Only his eyes moved. From the ledger, to Elena, to the black windows broken open to the rain, and the city beyond. As if every lit tower outside had become a witness he could not kill. Rafe muttered something to one of the men behind him, then shoved the terrified security officer toward the far hall. "Get him downstairs. Lock him somewhere quiet. If he sneezes, I want to know why." The guard disappeared with 2 armed men. Elena barely heard them. Her fingers had gone numb around the ledger's edges. She could feel Marco's jacket on her shoulders, too large and too warm, could feel the ache in her bandaged foot, the dried blood tightening across her hand, the ghost of Marco's mouth still on hers from the hidden corridor. But none of it felt as real as that line. Isabel Vale was never her real name. "Elena," Marco said. She hated the gentleness in it. "No." He stopped. That was the worst part. He stopped because she said no. He gave her the space she demanded, and because he did, she had nowhere to put the anger except inside herself. "Know what?" Rafe asked carefully. Elena looked up. Both men were watching her now. Marco with that unbearable restraint, Rafe with a soldier's readiness to move if she fell apart. She did not want to fall apart in front of either of them. "No more secrets around me." Her voice sounded strange, too calm, too thin. No more men looking at each other like they know which parts of the truth I'm too fragile to hear. No more protecting me from information while bullets come through windows over my head. If my mother lied about her name, someone in this room is going to tell me why. Marco's face tightened. I do not know why. Then guess. I do not guess with your life. Everyone else has. That landed. Marco took the hit without flinching, but she saw it enter him anyway. Rafe cleared his throat. There may be another way. Marco's head turned. Speak. Rafe nodded toward the ledger. If Dario wrote that line, he pulled it from somewhere. He didn't deal in family gossip. He dealt in records. Names, transfers, custody, favors. There'll be an index. Elena looked down at the book. Her thumb found the back pages and flipped fast, ignoring the sting in her bandage. The final section was thinner, written in a tighter code. Names, initials, addresses, cross-references. Vale, Samuel, custodian. Voss, Luca, dispersals. Voss, Marco, succession. Voss, Octavia, archive. Then lower. Vale, Isabel, C. Morty, Serafina. Elena stopped breathing. Serafina, she whispered. The name did not belong to her mother. Her mother was Isabel, who sang old Italian lullabies with a voice roughened by illness. Isabel, who planted basil in chipped mugs on the windowsill. Isabel, who let Elena lick frosting from wooden spoons and told her never to trust a man who wanted obedience more than laughter. Not Serafina. Never Serafina. Marco moved closer. This time, Elena did not tell him no. He looked over her shoulder at the line, his body going colder with every second. Rafe swore under his breath, Morty. Elena looked between them. Tell me. Marco's jaw worked once. The Mortys were my father's rivals before Luca, and I were old enough to understand the word rival. Not bigger than the Voss family. Older, quieter. They made money disappear for men who could not afford paper trails. Politicians, judges, smugglers, families like mine. Accountants, Elena said. Accountants with armies, Rafe corrected. Elena touched the name on the page, careful not to smear it with the dried blood on her finger. Serafina Morty. Marco looked at Rafe. Find her. Already doing it. Rafe pulled out his phone and started typing, but Elena kept her eyes on Marco. You've heard of her. Yes. The single syllable was too controlled. Then say it. His eyes met hers. Serafina Morty was the only daughter of Carlo Morty, he said. Carlo was the family's old treasurer. Some people said he kept enough evidence to bury every crime family in the city for a generation. He died the year before my father did. How? Fire? Elena's stomach twisted. Marco's voice remained level, but the emotion beneath it had gone dark and deep. A warehouse near the river burned with Carlo Morty and 6 of his people in sea. The official cause was electrical. Unofficially, my father ordered it. Elena's hand closed over the ledger. And my mother. Serafina Morty disappeared 2 nights before the fire. The penthouse tilted around her. For one dizzy second, Elena could not feel the floor. She reached for the kitchen island, missed, and Marco was there without grabbing her, one hand hovering near her back. Elena. Don't, she forced herself upright. I'm standing. His hand lowered. She hated that she wanted it back. Rafe looked up from his phone, grim. There are no public records for Serafina Morty after age 23. No marriage, no death certificate, no bank activity, nothing. Isabel Vale appears 2 months later in church records, married to Samuel Vale. My father hid her, Elena said. The words came out hollow. Marco's gaze sharpened. Or loved her. Don't make him noble yet. I am not. Good, her voice trembled, so she made it harder. Because if he was hiding her, then he hid me too. My entire life was a locked room, and I did not even know I was inside it. The distant elevator chimed somewhere beyond the broken living room. Everyone froze. Rafe drew his weapon. Marco moved in front of Elena, already armed, already between her and the sound. A voice came through the comm panel near the wall, female, clipped, and annoyed. Rafe, if you make me stand in this elevator with a security team breathing down my neck for another second, I'll start charging you by the minute. Rafe exhaled, Dr. Bell. Marco lowered his gun by an inch. Let her in. Elena looked at him. Doctor, you and I are both bleeding. You said no strangers. Sophia is less strange than most. I did not agree to a doctor. You agreed not to bleed on my floor forever. I said nothing of the kind. The elevator opened before he could answer. A woman strode into the penthouse carrying a black medical bag and wearing a camel coat over navy scrubs. Her dark hair twisted into a severe knot that failed to soften the ferocity of her face. She looked maybe 35, tired enough to be dangerous, and unimpressed by the broken glass, armed men, bullet holes, and blood. Her eyes landed on Marco. You're an idiot. Marco said, Good evening, Sophia. Do not good evening me with a bullet graze in your side and glass all over your floor. She turned to Elena. You must be Elena Vale. Elena tightened her grip on the ledger. Apparently. Sophia's gaze flicked to the book, then away fast. Smart woman. I'm Sophia Bell. I patch up men who make poor life choices and occasionally decent women caught near them. She looked down at Elena's bandaged foot. May I examine you? The question loosened something in Elena's chest. Not much. Enough. Yes, Elena said. My foot and my hand. Nothing else unless you ask first. Sophia nodded once. Good. Marco watched that exchange with unreadable intensity. Elena felt his attention like heat at her side. Sophia worked quickly at the kitchen island, cleaning the cut in Elena's foot more thoroughly than Marco had, removing a smaller shard of glass he had missed, then rewrapping her hand. Every touch was announced before it happened. Every wince was met with a pause. Elena found herself breathing easier, until Sophia turned to Marco. Shirt off? No. Yes. Sophia. Marco. The doctor did not blink. Rafe's mouth twitched. Marco looked irritated enough to shoot someone, but he unbuttoned what remained of his ruined shirt and shrugged out of it. Elena looked away too late. She caught the broad plane of his chest, the hard lines of muscle built not in a gym for vanity, but through violence and discipline. Old scars marked him, a thin white line across one shoulder, a jagged mark low on his ribs, a round, puckered scar near his left side that looked too much like an old bullet wound. His body was not flawless. It was a record of survival. That made it worse. Marco saw her looking. Of course he did. His eyes met hers across the island. Not smug, not teasing, aware. A slow pulse moved low in Elena's stomach, inconvenient and undeniable. Then Sophia snapped on gloves. and pressed antiseptic to his wound hard enough to make him hiss. Alina nearly smiled. "Good," Sophia said. "You still feel pain. I was beginning to wonder." Marco said something in Italian. Sophia replied in Italian, with a tone that needed no translation. Rafe did laugh then, quietly. For one brief, surreal minute, the penthouse became almost domestic. A doctor muttering. A bodyguard checking his phone. Rain tapping through the broken window. A Mafia don bare-chested at his kitchen island, while Alina Vale sat wrapped in his jacket with her mother's false name in a ledger on her lap. Then Rafe's phone buzzed. He looked at it and went still. Marco saw his face. "What?" Rafe turned the screen toward him. "We found the storage unit." Alina straightened. "The one on page 72. "Yes." "Then we go." Sophia did not look up from taping Marco's ribs. "No one goes. Anywhere until I finish." Marco's eyes narrowed. "Sophia." She pressed 2 fingers near the wound. His jaw clamped shut. "Thought so," she said. 5 stitches, sit down." Alina slid off the stool. Her foot hurt, but the ground held. "We don't have time." Sophia looked at her properly then. Something like sympathy flickered and vanished. "You have time for him not to bleed through his shirt during whatever terrible plan you're forming. He can stay." "No," Marco said. Alina turned. "Of course. You are not going to that storage unit without me. And you are not going with an open wound, because you think masculine stupidity counts as strategy." Sophia's eyebrows rose. Rafe coughed into his fist. Marco stood with terrible calm. "Rafe can secure the site. You and I will go when Sophia finishes." Alina almost argued. "Almost." Then she saw the cost in his face. Not of the wound, of staying when every instinct in him demanded motion. The man wanted to hunt, to punish, to tear the night apart until his brother bled answers. Instead, he was choosing a plan. With her. "Fine," she said. 5 stitches. Sophia pointed at Marco. "Sit." He sat. Alina looked away when the needle went in. Not because she was squeamish. Because Marco did not make a sound, and that silence revealed too much about what pain had taught him to hide. Rafe sent 2 teams to the storage facility. Sophia stitched. Marco endured. Alina turned back to the ledger, because if she stopped moving, stopped thinking, stopped scraping the truth from the page like sugar burned to a pan, she might have to feel the full weight of her mother's stolen name. Morty Serafina. She found 3 more references. S. Morty transferred to S. Vale after witness compromise. Isabel identity secured through church route. Maternal key retained. Lullaby phrase and bloodline verification. Bloodline verification, she said aloud. Marco's head snapped toward her despite Sophia's needle. "Where?" She showed him. His face went blank. Rafe crossed the room. "That's not Luca's usual business." "What is it?" Alina asked. Marco did not answer. Sophia did. "Old world paranoia with modern money," she said, tying off the stitch. Some families used layered access for evidence caches. Phrase, document, biological relation. Not always high-tech. Sometimes just instructions to an attorney or bank. Release only to a blood descendant who knows a specific phrase. Alina looked at her. "You know a lot for a doctor." Sophia's mouth flattened. Doctors in this city learn things they wish they didn't. Marco's gaze remained on the page. Lullaby phrase. Alina's skin chilled. Her mother had sung in Italian. Not every night, only when Alina was sick, only when rain hit the windows, only when Samuel thought they were alone. Soft, low words Alina had never fully understood. She could hear them now. Figlia del fuoco, dormi nel mare. Daughter of fire, sleep in the sea. Her mother told her it was nonsense. Old family nonsense. A song for frightened girls. Alina had believed her because children believed mothers until the world taught them otherwise. Alina, Marco said. She realized she had gone silent too long. I know it. The words made everyone in the room still. The phrase, Rafe asked. My mother's song, Alina swallowed. I know the phrase. Marco closed his eyes for 1 second. When he opened them, the man looking back at her was not tired now. He was afraid. Not for himself. For her. The storage unit is bait, he said. Yes, Alina said, and it may still have the original ledger. Alina, you promised we set the trap together. His jaw flexed. Sophia pulled off her gloves. Whatever you're doing, give him 10 minutes before you make him run or shoot anything. 5, Marco said. 10. 7. Sophia stared at him. Marco stared back. Alina said 10. Marco looked at her. See, Sophia snapped her bag shut. The woman has sense. Try listening to her before someone shoots something important off you. Rafe escorted Sophia to the elevator. Before she stepped inside, the doctor looked back at Alina. Keep pressure off the foot when you can. And don't confuse a man's willingness to bleed for you with proof he knows how to love you. The elevator doors closed. The words stayed. Marco's face gave nothing away. Alina looked at him anyway. Does everyone in your life speak in warnings? Only the ones still alive. Rafe returned. Storage unit team says the facility is empty except for one night guard. Cameras went down 15 minutes ago. Bait, Marco repeated. Alina picked up the ledger. Then, let's make Luca think we swallowed it. They drove to the storage facility in a different car, with a different convoy, through service tunnels Alina had not known existed beneath Voss Tower. Marco sat beside her again, now in a black shirt that made his face look paler and his eyes more dangerous. His wound was hidden. His pain was not. She saw it in the minute tightening of his mouth when the car turned. Too hard, in the way he breathed shallowly when he thought no one was watching. She was watching. That, too, felt like a secret. The city after midnight looked stripped of mercy. The rain had stopped, leaving the roads black and slick. Streetlights smeared gold across puddles. The storage facility sat near the river, behind a chain-link fence and a row of abandoned warehouses, all corrugated metal and bad lighting. The sort of place where secrets did not have to hide well because nobody respectable looked too closely. Rafe met them at the side gate. All clear so far, he said. Too clear. Marco looked at Alina. You stay between us. I stay where I can see. Alina, I cannot unlock anything from the middle of a tactical formation. Rafe's eyes flicked to Marco in warning. Marco held Alina's gaze. If anything feels wrong, you say it. We leave. Everything feels wrong. More wrong. Despite the fear crawling under her skin, Alina almost smiled. Almost. They moved through the facility in silence. Marco on her right, Rafe on her left, 2 men ahead, 2 behind. The ledger Dario had died with was now locked inside a decoy case carried by one of Marco's guards. Alina carried nothing but her mother's song and the emergency phone in her pocket. Her hands felt dangerously empty. Unit 312 stood at the end of a narrow corridor beneath a flickering fluorescent light. The lock was old, not digital, not biometric, just a heavy brass padlock with rust around the edges and a strip of black tape across the keyhole. Alina stared at it. "My father would have hated that," she murmured. Marco glanced at her. "Hated what?" "Rust. He said if you were going to hide something, don't be lazy about the small things." A strange ache moved through her. She had come here ready to hate Samuel Vale. Instead, grief kept ambushing her in stupid places. A lock, a smell of dust, the memory of his hands repairing the bakery mixer with more tenderness than he used on himself. Rafe crouched near the lock. No tripwire, no fresh marks, bolt cutter. Alina stepped forward. "Wait." Everyone stopped. She looked at the tape again. It was not tape. It was ribbon. Black satin ribbon, weathered with age, tied flat around the lock. Her mother used to tie bakery boxes with blue ribbon, but for funerals, the orders always got black. Alina remembered being 10, asking why sad people still bought cake. Because grief needs somewhere to put its hands, her father had said. She reached for the ribbon. Marco's voice was low. "Alina." "I know." "Do you?" She looked at him. "No." Then she untied it. A tiny brass key fell into her palm. No one breathed. The key had been hidden inside the ribbon fold. Alina let out a laugh that hurt. Not lazy. Marco's eyes moved over her face. "Samuel left that for you. Or for my mother. Maybe both." She slid the key into the lock. It turned. The door rolled up with a metallic groan. Dust breathed out. The unit was small. 10 by 10. Stacked with bakery supply boxes, old furniture under sheets, and plastic bins labeled in her father's blocky handwriting. Christmas, taxes, Mama-s things. Alina's throat closed. Marco stood just outside, giving her space, though every line of him wanted to enter first. She looked back. "Come in." His eyes searched hers. "You are sure?" "No," she turned toward the boxes. "Come in anyway." They found the original ledger in a flour tin. Of course they did. Not in a safe. Not in a locked case. Not beneath a floorboard. In a dented 20-pound tin labeled semolina, tucked behind a box of old aprons and yellowed recipe cards. Alina opened the tin herself. Inside lay a brown leather ledger with frayed corners, wrapped in wax paper and tied with blue ribbon. Her mother's handwriting marked the front. "For my daughter, when lies come looking." Alina sat down on a plastic storage bin because her knees gave out with no permission. Marco crouched in front of her, but did not touch. "Alina, I'm still here." "I know." "No," she pressed the ledger to her chest. "I'm telling myself." His face changed. Something in him recognized that. The need to speak your own survival into the air because no one else's voice could make it true. Rafe entered with a small recorder in hand. "We should move. Staying here is." The facility lights went out. Darkness slammed down. A gun clicked somewhere in the hall. Marco was in front of Alina before she could blink. Rafe swore, "Contact." A voice came through the dark, amplified by the corridor's metal walls. Such a touching family errand. "Luca." Alina's blood turned cold. Emergency lights flickered on, red and weak. Shadows appeared in the hall. Too many, armed men at both ends. Marco's men shifted positions, weapons up, but the corridor was narrow, the storage unit a trap, the exit compromised. Luca stepped into view. He wore a black coat now, his wounded hand wrapped in white gauze where Marco had shot the gun from it. His smile looked carved in candle wax. "Hello, Elena," he said. "You found your inheritance." Marco's voice was deadly calm. "Come one step closer, and I put you down." Luca sighed, always the blunt instrument. Elena stood behind Marco, the old ledger clutched beneath her jacket. "Where is Nina?" "Alive, boring, surrounded by your brother's watchdogs." Luca's gaze slid to Marco. "You do collect strays." Marco did not move. "You used Octavia's code." "I used what was mine." "Nothing in my house is yours." Luca smiled. "Our grandmother disagrees." The name landed like poison. Rafe shifted beside Marco. "Boss, we need to." A shot cracked from behind them. One of Marco's men fell. The corridor exploded into gunfire. Marco shoved Elena backward into the storage unit and came with her, using the metal doorframe as cover. Rafe fired down the hall. Bullets punched through boxes, ripped through old furniture, shattered plastic bins. Elena hit the floor with the original ledger trapped under her body, Dario's words roaring in her skull. "Secure Elena Vale alive. Do not kill Evie until original is located." Possible maternal key. She was not the target. The book was not enough. She was the lock. "Elena," Marco shouted. "I'm here. Stay down." She almost laughed at the absurdity of how many times he had said that since entering her life. Instead, she crawled toward the back of the unit, dragging the ledger with her, because a memory had sparked. Mama's things. The plastic bin sat half open from when they had searched it. Inside were scarves, old photographs, a cracked rosary, a music box shaped like a blue bird, and a bundle of letters tied with string. Elena grabbed the letters. The top envelope was addressed in her mother's hand. "To Elena, if Samuel cannot tell you." Her vision blurred. "Not now. Not now." A bullet tore through the box above her head. Elena shoved the letters into her waistband and crawled back toward Marco. Rafe was down on one knee, bleeding from his arm, but still firing. Marco stood half in the doorway, every shot precise, controlled, devastating. His face was empty of everything but purpose. Then Luca's voice rang out. "Careful, brother. If you kill me, you'll never know what she really is." Marco stopped firing. Elena's stomach dropped. Luca laughed softly. "There he is. Father's boy after all. Put a woman-shaped secret in front of him and watch him become sentimental." Marco's voice was low. "Elena is not a secret." "No," Luca stepped closer, hands slightly raised, fearless because his men still held the corridor. "Then ask her what lullaby her mother sang." Elena went cold. Marco did not look back. Luca's smile widened. "She knows it, doesn't she? Of course she does. Serafina would have made sure. She always did like theatrics. The fire, the false death, the baker with kind eyes. Very romantic, really." "False death." Elena's breath stopped. Marco heard it. She saw the slight shift in his shoulders. Luca looked past him at her. "Oh, you didn't know that part." Elena forced herself upright, one hand on the wall. "My mother died in a hospital. Isabel Vale died in a hospital." Luca's voice turned almost tender. Serafina Morty did not. The storage unit fell away. Alina heard nothing for 1 second. Not gunfire. Not rainwater dripping from the roof. Not Rafe cursing into his comm. Not Marco saying her name. Her mother. Alive? No. No, that was cruel. That was Luca doing what Luca did. Smiling while he poisoned the air. You're lying, Alina said. Often, Luca agreed. Not now. Marco fired a shot into the wall beside Luca's head. Luca did not flinch. Enough, Marco said. Luca's eyes glittered. You never could stand the truth when it cost you something. What do you want? Marco asked. The ledger, the girl, and your confession. Marco went still. My confession. That you killed Dario, Count to bury Samuel Vale's evidence. That Alina helped you for money because her bakery was failing. That Rafe cleaned the scene. We all sign our parts. The city believes what it is told, and I let your pretty baker keep breathing long enough to meet her mother. Alina's hand tightened on the ledger. Marco's voice stayed calm. You think anyone will believe I confessed to a murder I did not commit? Yes, Luca's smile thinned. Because if you don't, I release enough evidence to make Samuel Vale the architect of the Morty fire, the Voss laundering network, and every death attached to the original ledger. Alina's father becomes the monster. Alina becomes the daughter who inherited his dirty money. Her bakery burns under scandal before anyone burns it with gasoline. Alina felt the blow physically. Her father's name, her bakery, her mother. Every wound Luca could find, he pressed. Marco did not look at her. And if I do confess, then you go to prison or die before trial. Grandmother grieves in black. I inherit the family. Alina gives me the ledger and the phrase. Serafina's archive opens. Everyone gets what they deserve. Rafe snarled, you delusional piece of. Marco lifted one hand. Rafe stopped. The quiet that followed terrified Alina more than the gunfire. Because Marco was thinking. Alina, Marco said without turning. No. His head angled slightly. No, she repeated. Do not use that voice. You do not know what voice I am using. The one where you decide to sacrifice yourself and call it strategy. Luca laughed. She learns fast. Marco's hand tightened around his gun. Alina stepped up beside him despite the pain in her foot, despite the way every gun in the corridor shifted toward her. Marco's body went rigid. Get behind me, he said. No. Luca's eyes warmed with delight. There she is. Alina looked at him, really looked, and understood something. Luca did not want only the ledger. He did not want only power. He wanted Marco to break in front of her. He wanted to turn protection into possession, love into leverage, restraint into violence. He wanted proof that Marco was no better than the father who had locked women in gilded rooms and called it devotion. Alina lifted her chin. You don't want me dead because you need me to open Serafina's archive. Luca's smile faded a fraction. Good. You don't want Marco dead yet because you need him disgraced. You need him to choose wrong where everyone can see it. His men, your grandmother, me. Marco's gaze cut to her. Alina kept her eyes on Luca. But if the archive needs my mother's phrase, and I know it, then you have a problem. Luca's expression sharpened. Alina took one step forward. Marco's hand caught her wrist. She turned just enough to meet his eyes. He looked furious, terrified. Trust me, she whispered. His grip trembled once. Then he let go. The release moved through her more deeply than any touch could have. Alina faced Luca again. You need me willing enough to say it correctly, maybe even in front of whatever attorney or mechanism Serafina set up. Otherwise, you would have grabbed me at the bakery. You would have had your men take me from the penthouse. But you keep talking, threatening, performing. Luca's jaw tightened. You need my cooperation, Alina said, and you have done a terrible job earning it. For the first time, Luca looked truly angry. Marco's mouth moved near her ear. Alina. Not warning. Admiration wrapped in dread. Luca stepped closer. You think you are bargaining from strength. No, she said. I'm bargaining from value. You taught me the difference. A muscle jumped in his cheek. Then he smiled again, but this time it was thinner, meaner. Fine, your terms. Alina's heart hammered. She had no terms. She had seconds. Behind Luca, barely visible in the red emergency light, one of Marco's men shifted near the far corridor junction. Rafe saw him too. Alina saw Rafe's fingers tighten around his gun. They needed Luca's focus. She could do that. My first term, Alina said, is proof my mother is alive. Luca's smile returned fully. He reached into his coat. Every gun rose. Easy, Luca said. If I wanted to shoot her, I would have let the penthouse sniper aim lower. Marco's body turned lethal beside her. Luca pulled out a phone and tapped the screen. A video played. A woman sat in a chair near a window, silver-threaded dark hair braided over one shoulder. Face thinner than memory and older than the photograph Alina kept in her bedroom, but unmistakable. Alina's mother. Her mother. Alive. The world went silent. Serafina Morty, Isabel Vale, the dead woman who had sung Rain's songs and kissed Alina's scraped knees, looked straight into the camera. Alina, she said, voice trembling but alive. If you see this, do not trust Luca. Do not trust Octavia. And do not open the archive unless Marco Voss stands beside you by choice, not by blood. The video cut off. Alina could not breathe. Marco said her name, but she could not answer. Her mother was alive. Her mother had left her. Her mother had warned her. Her mother had named Marco. Luca slid the phone back into his pocket. Touching, isn't it? She always did know how to ruin a clean plan. Alina's grief became rage, so clean it steadied her. Where is she? Safe. Where? Give me the ledger. No. Luca's mask slipped. Only for a heartbeat. But in that heartbeat, Alina saw the boy Marco had once known. Not charming, not elegant, not wicked in a glamorous way, just hungry. Starved for something rotten men had told him was love. Then gunfire erupted behind him. Marco's men moved. Rafe shouted, down. Marco dragged Alina back as the corridor became muzzle flashes and smoke. Luca turned, firing with his injured hand. One of his men fell. Another surged forward. Marco shot him before he reached the unit. Alina hit the floor hard, the original ledger beneath her. The letters in her waistband dug into her stomach. The metal door above them screamed. Someone was trying to force it down. Marco kicked a fallen weapon toward Rafe, who caught it with his good hand and fired toward the left flank. The red lights flickered. The smell of gunpowder thickened. Alina, Marco said, crouching over her. Can you crawl? Yes. Back wall now. She crawled. behind the storage boxes, a rectangular panel had been cut into the rear wall, half hidden behind a stack of old cake boards. Her father's work. It had to be. No one else would make an escape hatch in a storage unit and then hide it behind bakery supplies. Elena shoved the boards aside. A narrow opening led into the unit behind theirs. She almost laughed. Samuel Vale, coward or criminal or loving father or all of the above, had not been lazy with the small things. Marco. He glanced back, saw the opening, and understood instantly. Rafe, he barked, exit. Rafe covered them while Marco shoved boxes aside. Elena crawled through first, teeth clenched against the pain in her foot. The unit behind theirs was empty except for dust and a broken chair. Marco came after her. Rafe followed last, dragging the wounded guard with him, while another of Marco's men slammed the panel shut from the original side. They ran, or tried to. Elena limped fast enough to make the pain blur. Marco caught her around the waist once, then looked at her for permission even as bullets struck the wall behind them. Yes, she snapped. He lifted her partially against his side and moved, not carrying her this time, helping her move under her own will. The distinction mattered even now, especially now, while Luca's threats chased them through the dark. They burst out of the rear unit into another corridor. Rafe shot the lock off an emergency exit. Cold night air hit them like water. Then Luca appeared at the end of the corridor, alone now, blood on his cheek and fury in his eyes. Marco. Marco turned. Elena knew before he did. Luca was not aiming at him. He was aiming at her. Marco moved in front of her, but Elena had already stepped aside. Not away, into the angle. Luca's finger tightened on the trigger. Rafe fired first. The shot hit Luca's shoulder. He staggered, gun dropping from his hand, and Marco crossed the corridor like a storm. He slammed Luca against the wall. The sound of it made Elena flinch. Marco's gun pressed beneath Luca's jaw. For one breath, no one moved. Luca laughed, wet and breathless. Do it. Marco's face was a nightmare. Not rage. Something worse. Heartbreak with a weapon. Do it, Luca whispered. Show her. Elena stood frozen in the emergency doorway. The original ledger clutched to her chest, her mother's letters against her skin, watching the two brothers under the red light. Marco's finger rested on the trigger. Luca smiled through blood. Father would be proud. Marco flinched. Not visibly to anyone else, maybe. But Elena saw it. She saw the boy who had lost his mother. The man who had built walls and called them protection. The brother being invited to become the monster he had spent his life resisting. Marco, she said. His eyes did not leave Luca. Luca's smile widened. Listen to her. Let her make you weak. Elena stepped closer. Marco. Rafe's voice cut in. Boss, we need to move. Sirens sounded in the distance. Real ones close. Marco's gun stayed under Luca's jaw. Luca whispered something Elena could not hear. Whatever it was, Marco's face changed. His grief went black. What did you say? Elena asked. Luca looked at her over Marco's shoulder, eyes bright with malice. I said your mother screamed his name when they took her. Marco slammed him harder against the wall. Luca choked and laughed anyway. Not Samuel's, not mine, his. Elena's blood went cold. Marco's gun dug into Luca's skin. Elena, Marco said, voice almost unrecognizable. Go with Rafe. No. Go. No. He turned his head then. Only slightly. Enough for her to see the war in his eyes. If she left, he would kill Luca. Not because he lacked control. Because he had held too much for too long. And Luca had found the last wire. Elena walked to him. Slowly, carefully, every step agony in her foot, every breath sharp. Rafe cursed behind her, but did not stop her. Maybe he understood. Maybe he knew this was the only battlefield that mattered now. She came close enough to touch Marco's arm. She did not. Don't claim justice if this is revenge, she said. Marco's jaw flexed. He deserves it. Yes. Luca smiled. Elena ignored him. But you told me you wanted my trust, she said. I am giving it to you right now. Do not make me wrong. Marco's hand trembled. The gun did not lower. Luca whispered, "Shall leave you too." There, the cruelest bullet in the room. Elena saw it hit. She stepped closer, deliberately into Marco's line of sight, close enough that he had to choose whether to look at Luca or look at her. He looked at her. "I'm here," she said. His eyes burned. "Not because you caged me, not because you scared me, not because you claimed me." Her voice dropped, shaking now, but clear. "Because you trusted me when every part of you wanted not to. Now I need you to trust me again." Marco's breathing was rough. Behind them, sirens grew. Louder. Rafe said, "Boss." Marco closed his eyes. For one terrible second, Elena thought he would do it anyway. Then he pulled the gun away from Luca's throat and drove the butt of it into Luca's temple. Luca collapsed. Alive. Marco caught him by the collar before he hit the ground, fury still radiating from every inch of him. "Cuff him," he said. Rafe moved instantly. Elena exhaled so hard she nearly folded. Marco turned toward her. The space between them was full of gun smoke, blood, sirens, lies, and the terrible thing he had not done. "You should not have had to ask me," he said. "No," she whispered, "but I did." His face twisted once, almost too fast to see. Then the emergency exit burst open behind them. Men flooded in wearing police tactical gear. For half a second, Elena felt relief. Then she saw the captain in front. The same man from the ledger. One of the paid names. His weapon lifted toward Marco. "Hands up," the captain shouted. "Marco Voss, you're under arrest for the murder of Dario Conte and the kidnapping of Elena Vale." Rafe swung his gun up. Marco raised one hand, slow. "Not surrender." "Warning." Elena clutched the original ledger tighter. The captain's eyes slid to it. "There. Hunger." Luca groaned from the floor and smiled through the blood on his teeth. "Right on time," he whispered. And Elena understood the trap too late. The midnight meeting had not been meant to give Luca the ledger. It had been meant to put Marco, Elena, the evidence, and corrupt police in the same room with enough bodies on the floor to bury them all. The captain aimed at Elena. "Drop the book," he said. Marco stepped in front of her. "No," Elena said. "Not to the captain. To Marco. To the whole damned city." She moved beside him instead of behind him, holding the ledger against her heart. The captain's finger tightened. Marco's hand found hers in the dark, blood warm and steady, not pulling her back, not pushing her down, only gripping once as if to say he understood. Together. Then the first shot rang out. Chapter 5. Claimed BY Trust. The first shot rang out, and Alina felt Marco's hand tighten around hers. Not dragging her down, not pushing her behind him. Just one hard, blood-warm grip that said he knew, finally, that if she stood beside him, she had chosen the danger with open eyes. The corrupt captain's bullet never reached her. Rafe hit him first. The shot tore through the captain's gun hand, spinning the weapon across the concrete corridor before it could fire. The captain shouted, clutching his wrist, and the men behind him surged forward in tactical black, weapons raised, badges bright under the emergency lights like lies polished for court. "Drop your weapons," one of them shouted. Marco did not. Rafe did not. Neither did the two Voss men, still standing at the far end of the corridor. Alina's pulse thundered so hard she could hear it over the sirens, over Luca's low, delighted laugh from the floor, over the rainwater dripping from the roof somewhere beyond the emergency exit. Her foot burned. Her hand throbbed. Her mother's letters pressed against her waist beneath her clothes. The original ledger sat against her chest, heavy enough to feel like a living thing. A book could not protect her, but truth could, if she was brave enough to use it before men, with guns buried it again. The captain's eyes found hers through the chaos. Not Marco's. Hers. "Give me the ledger, Miss Vale," he said, voice tight with pain and fury. "You have no idea what you're holding." Alina looked at his bleeding hand. "I know exactly what I'm holding. You're obstructing an active investigation. You're named in it." The corridor went still. Not silent, men still breathed. Guns still clicked into position. Luca still laughed quietly through blood at Marco's feet. But attention shifted. That was all Alina needed. The captain's face changed by less than an inch, but she saw the calculation enter his eyes. The move from command to cleanup, from intimidation to disposal. "Alina," Marco said quietly. "I see it." His grip flexed once, then released. The choice was hers. The captain forced a smile. "You've had a traumatic night. You don't know what you read." "I read your name." Her voice shook, but she made it carry. "Captain Anthony Greer, shipping protection payments, evidence suppression, judge contact, 2 payments marked Bellini, 1 marked Dario Conte." Greer's face drained of color. Rafe's head snapped toward her. "Alina." She did not stop, because if she stopped, fear would catch her. "And there's more," she said, opening the ledger with blood-stained fingers. "There's a second set of codes, obligations, names, dates, the Morty fire, the Voss laundering network, the false identity created for Serafina Morty, also known as Isabel Vale." Luca's laughter died. That was how Alina knew she had found the right nerve. Greer looked at Luca, and there it was, the flicker of a man realizing the deal he had made might not save him. "Marco C. Audit 2. His voice dropped into velvet over steel. "You came here for the original ledger because Luca promised it would disappear." Greer's jaw clenched. "You're finished, Voss." "No." Marco stepped forward just enough to make every gun in the corridor shift. "I was finished the second I inherited my father's sins and mistook control for survival. This is something else." Luca spat blood onto the concrete. "Listen to him. Noble Marco. Reformed Marco. He'll confess to anything if she looks at him long enough." Alina looked down at him. Her fear had burned too hot for too long. What remained was cleaner, colder. "You wanted him to kill you," she said. Luca's eyes glittered. You wanted to die with his hand on the weapon, so everyone would call him his father's son. Don't flatter yourself, Luca whispered. I'm not. Alina stepped closer, careful of her injured foot. Marco's body tightened, but he did not stop her. You brought corrupt police, your brother, the ledger, and me into one place. You wanted a massacre that could be written in advance. Marco dead or imprisoned, me blamed or vanished. The archive opened. Octavia satisfied. The city yours. Luca smiled faintly. And yet here you are, trembling and proud, thinking truth matters because good people told you it should. Alina crouched in front of him. Marco moved instantly, but she lifted one hand without looking back. He stopped. Luca's smile sharpened, pleased that she had come within reach. He was still handsome. Even bleeding, even beaten, even with his hands bound behind him, Luca Voss wore charm like a blade, hidden in silk. Alina wondered how many people had mistaken that softness for mercy right before he proved them wrong. You made one mistake, she said. His eyes narrowed. You thought I needed Marco to save me from the truth. She leaned closer. I needed him to trust me with it. Something ugly flashed across Luca's face. There, not jealousy of Marco's empire, not only that. Jealousy of trust, of being believed, of being chosen without fear. Luca looked past her at Marco. She'll learn. Marco's answer was quiet. She already has. The captain moved. Alina heard Rafe shout. Saw Greer's good hand go beneath his vest. Saw the small black backup gun appear from a hidden holster. Marco pulled her back this time. Not behind him, to his side. The shot cracked. The bullet slammed into the metal doorframe, inches from Alina's head. Rafe fired again. Greer went down with a cry, his backup weapon skidding across the floor. One of the officers behind him raised his gun at Rafe, but the man beside him shoved the barrel down. Enough, the second officer shouted. His face had gone gray. His eyes moved from Greer to the ledger, then to the body on the floor, then to Marco. Enough. Nobody fires. Greer groaned, bleeding from the shoulder now, not dead. Rafe kept his weapon trained on him. Smart choice. The second officer swallowed. Captain Greer is under arrest pending review. Luca laughed again, weaker now. Review, how civilized. Marco stepped over him. For a second, Alina thought he might change his mind after all. The corridor seemed to hold its breath. Marco crouched in front of his brother. Blood had soaked through the stitches at his side again, darkening his black shirt. His face was pale beneath the hard control, but his hand was steady when he reached down and took Luca by the chin, forcing his gaze up. You wanted me to become him, Marco said. Luca's lips curled. You are him. No, Marco's voice did not rise. I was raised by him. There is a difference. Luca's expression twisted. For the first time, something raw broke through the charm. Hate, yes, but beneath it, grief left to rot until it became poison. You left me with them, Luca said. The words struck harder than the gunfire. Marco went still. I was 18 when I took power, he said. And I was 16. Luca's voice cracked, then hardened with shame at the crack. You saved yourself, saved Mother's memory, saved the men who bowed fastest. But me, you let Grandmother finish what Father started. Pain moved across Marco's face. Alina saw it, so did Luca. He smiled because he had drawn blood. You want justice, Luca whispered. Look in a mirror. Marco did not answer quickly. The old version of him might have. Alina knew that now. The Don, the weapon, the man who sealed pain inside silence and called it discipline. He would have struck back with cruelty or bullet or command. This Marco breathed once, then said, "You are right." Luca blinked. The whole corridor seemed to shift. Marco's jaw flexed. "I failed you." Rafe's face tightened behind him. Alina felt the confession in her own chest. Marco did not look away from his brother. "But you chose what you became after that. So did I, so did father. So did Octavia. Pain explains rot. It does not excuse spreading it." Luca's eyes went bright with fury. Marco released his chin and stood. "Take him," he said. The second officer looked uncertainly at Marco. Rafe gave him a smile without warmth. "You heard the man." 2 officers moved in. This time, no one stopped them. Luca struggled once, more from pride than possibility, and the motion made him hiss through his teeth. As they hauled him upright, his eyes locked on Alina. "You still don't know what your mother is," he said. Alina held the ledger tighter. "No." His smile returned. "But I know who she is," Alina said. "And that means I can ask her myself." The smile died. "Good." They took Luca first. Then Greer, cursing and bleeding, and trying to bargain with officers who suddenly seemed desperate not to be standing on the wrong side of the ledger. Rafe collected weapons, issued orders, and made calls in a voice that sounded like calm murder. Marco stood beside Alina until the corridor emptied enough that the echo of sirens became distant and the emergency lights stopped flickering. Then his knees almost gave. Alina caught his arm. He stiffened. "I'm fine." "Lie better." His mouth twitched. Then pain took the expression before it could become a smile. Rafe turned. "Boss." "He needs Sophia," Alina said. Marco's eyes cut to her. "Do I?" "Yes." "I admire your new habit of command." "You created it." Rafe let out a short laugh, then sobered when Marco swayed again. "Car is outside." Alina kept her hand on Marco's arm. He looked down at it. She expected him to say she did not have to hold him up, that he could walk, that he was not weak. Instead, he placed his free hand over hers for one brief second. "Thank you," he said. 3 simple words. No possession, no deflection, no armor. Alina nearly broke from that more than anything else. They left the storage facility with the original ledger sealed in Rafe's case, her mother's letters beneath Alina's jacket, and Luca Voss alive in the custody of men who were now being watched by Marco's men. And a digital copy of the ledger already sent to 3 places Rafe refused to name. The night had turned pale at the edges by the time they returned to the tower. Dawn threatened the city with a gray, merciless light. The penthouse was no longer safe, so Marco did not take her there. He took her to an apartment 2 floors below it, smaller only by billionaire criminal standards, all pale wood and quiet corners, without shattered glass or blood on the floor. Sophia was already waiting inside with fresh gloves, fury in her eyes, and a look at Marco that promised pain. "I said 10 minutes, she snapped. Marco eased into a chair at the dining table. It became more. "You reopened stitches. Several people tried to kill us." "Poor excuse." Alina stood near the window while Sophia worked, suddenly unsure what to do with her hands now that she was not clutching proof or fighting for breath. Rafe had taken the ledgers to be scanned. Nina was safe with her sister. Luca was alive. Greer was exposed. The city had not changed yet, but the first crack had opened. Her mother was alive. The thought moved through her like a second pulse. Alive? For years, Alina had brought flowers to a grave. She had spoken to stone. She had forgiven a woman for leaving by dying because death was the one abandonment nobody chose. Now she did not know what to do with the old grief. It had been real. It had shaped her. But its foundation had shifted beneath her, and anger rose through the gap. Sophia's voice cut through her thoughts. "He'll live, no thanks to either of you." Marco said, comforting, "You should be lying down." "I am sitting," which is famously not lying down. Alina turned. "Marco." He looked at her. Then, with visible irritation and no argument, he stood and moved to the long couch. Sophia stared after him. "Interesting." "No," Alina said. "I didn't say anything." "You were going to." Sophia's mouth curved. "I was going to say he listens to you." Marco lowered himself onto the couch with care. "I am wounded, not deaf." "Then hear this. No running, no shooting, no dramatic hallway confrontations. 24 hours minimum. That will be difficult. Try having a personality beyond vengeance." Rafe entered before Marco could respond, carrying a tablet and wearing a new bandage around his arm. "Copies are secure. The original ledger is in the vault. Dario's ledger too. Greer's people are turning on each other already." Marco's eyes sharpened. "Luca. In custody, quiet for now. That will not last." "No, but his shoulder will slow him down." Alina looked at Rafe and Octavia. At the name, the room changed. Marco's face lost what little color pain had left him. Rafe tapped the tablet. "Old house is locked down from the inside. No movement on external cameras. Her attorney has requested a call." "Her attorney," Marco said, voice cold. "Apparently, she claims she has relevant information about Serafina Morty." Alina's stomach tightened. Marco started to sit up. Sophia pointed at him. "Try it, and I reopen the wound myself." He stopped, but his attention stayed on Rafe. "Put the attorney through." "No," Alina said. Every eye turned to her. She forced herself to stand straighter. "Not yet." Marco's gaze sharpened. "Alina. Octavia wants to control the timing. She wants us exhausted, bleeding, angry, desperate. That's why she made contact now." Rafe's expression changed first. Approval, surprised and brief. Marco's came second. Pride, better hidden and more dangerous to her composure. Alina drew a breath. "I want to read my mother's letters before anyone else tells me who she was." Marco's eyes softened by a degree so slight no one else might have seen it. "Then read them. And I want Nina checked again." "Already done," Rafe said. "She's stable, furious, and asking whether triple hazard pay includes emotional damages." Alina laughed before she could stop herself. It cracked through the room, fragile and real. For 1 second, everyone looked at her, as if laughter were more shocking than gunfire. Maybe it was. "Tell her yes," Alina said, wiping quickly at her eyes before the laugh could become something else. "Tell her whatever she wants, yes." Rafe nodded. "I'll update the hospital team." Sophia packed her bag. "I'll be in the next room for an hour because someone will ignore my instructions." She looked pointedly at Marco. Probably the man with no self-preservation instinct. "I preserve what matters," Marco said. Sophia's gaze moved briefly to Alina. "That is not the same as preserving yourself." Then she left with Rafe, and the apartment settled into quiet. Alina stood by the window. Marco lay propped against the couch pillows, one hand resting near his bandaged side, face drawn with pain he would not name. Without the suit jacket, without the gun visible, without men waiting for his orders, he looked almost dangerously human. She did not trust the quiet. Quiet had become the place where the next bullet waited. "Alina," he said. She looked at him. "Sit down before your foot makes the decision for you. I am tired of men telling me to sit. Then collapse standing, if you prefer." The corner of her mouth moved despite herself. She crossed the room, but instead of sitting on the chair farthest from him as caution advised, she sat on the edge of the low table facing the couch, close enough to see the small lines of exhaustion around his eyes, far enough that both of them could breathe. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Marco said, "I am sorry." Alina went still. He did not look away. "For Bellini's, for Nina, for your bakery, for my brother, for every room you walked into tonight where men knew your life better than you did." Her throat tightened. "You did not pull every trigger," she said. "No. You did not write every lie. No. You are not responsible for all of it." His face hardened slightly. "I am responsible for more than enough." She studied him. Yes. That seemed to surprise him. "Good. I'm not here to absolve you," she said. "I don't think I can. I don't think I should. You are dangerous, Marco. Not in the romantic way people whisper about men in dark suits. In the real way. Men die around you. People obey you because they're afraid. You have done things I probably don't want to know yet." His eyes held hers. "Yes. And you protected me." "Yes. And you trusted me." His voice changed, not quickly enough. "But you did." He looked down at his hand, resting on the couch. "I almost killed him." "Yes. If you had not been there. You might have." He closed his eyes. The pain that moved over his face had nothing to do with stitches. Alina stood, then sat beside him on the couch, not touching, but closer. "Marco." His eyes opened. "I did not stop you because I needed you clean," she said. "I stopped you because I needed you free." The words hit him hard. She saw the impact in the way his breathing changed. "Alina." No, she shook her head, tears burning now, but she let them. "I have lost too much tonight. My mother's death, my father's honesty, my bakery's safety, Nina's innocence. Maybe my old life, whatever was left of it. I could not watch you hand Luca the last piece of yourself and call it justice." Something broke in his expression. Not visibly enough to be a collapse. Enough that Alina saw the man beneath the empire reach for air. "I do not know how to love without guarding," he said. The confession was so quiet, she almost missed it. She did not answer quickly. Outside, dawn pressed silver against the windows. The city looked cleaner from high above, which was another lie distance told. Below them, police reports were being rewritten. Corrupt men were calling lawyers. Luca was probably already sharpening new words into weapons. And somewhere Serafina Morty was alive with answers Alina feared and needed. But here, in this suspended morning, Marco had given her the truth he knew how to give. So she gave him one back. "I don't know how to trust without testing the door." His eyes lifted. "Then test it," he said. Alina's throat tightened. "What?" "The door." He gestured faintly toward the apartment entrance. "The elevator, the car, my men, test all of it. If you want to go to Nina, I will arrange it. If you want to go to a hotel, I will argue and then arrange protection you can refuse. If you want to walk out and never see me again, I will not stop you." Her chest hurt. "You'll follow." A shadow crossed his face. The old instinct. The honest answer. "I will want to." And his jaw flexed. "I will not." She believed him. Not because he was safe. Because he was fighting to become safer for her. Alina stood. Marco watched her, motionless. She walked to the apartment door on her bandaged foot. It hurt. She let it. Pain was proof. Pain was honest. She pressed the release. The lock clicked open. No alarm. No men rushed in. No hand closed around her wrist. She opened the door. 2 guards stood in the hallway, several feet away. Both glanced over, then immediately looked to the floor like men under strict orders, not to frighten her. "I'm going to the elevator," she said. One guard nodded. "Yes, ma'am." No one stopped her. Alina walked to the elevator, pressed the button, and waited until the doors opened. Her reflection stared back from the polished metal. Blood on her dress, Marco's jacket on her shoulders, hair tangled, eyes too old for one night. She could leave. Maybe not cleanly, maybe not safely, maybe not without consequences. But she could. The realization slid through her like a key turning. She stepped into the elevator. The doors began to close. At the last second, she put out her hand and stopped them. Then she stepped back into the hall and returned to the apartment. Marco was exactly where she had left him, except his face had changed. He looked like a man who had braced for a bullet and received mercy instead. Alina closed the door behind her. "I'm still angry. I know. I still want answers from my mother. You will have them. I want my bakery fixed, not bought, fixed on my terms." A faint line appeared between his brows. "There is a difference." "Yes, learn it." "I will. I want Nina paid, triple hazard pay, plus emotional damages. Done. Not from dirty money." His expression sharpened. "Alina, I mean it. If the ledger is going to tear open your empire, then tear it properly. Find clean accounts. Sell something, I don't care." For one breath, he looked like no one had ever spoken to him that way. Then he looked like he wanted her more for it. "That may take time," he said. "Good, I'm not in the mood for easy." His gaze dropped briefly to her mouth. The room heated. Alina felt it move through her. Not the frantic spark of danger now, something deeper, slower, desire after choice, want after the unlocked door. Marco did not move. The restraint made her ache. "Alina," he said quietly, "do not come closer because I let you leave." "I'm not." "Do not come closer because I bled for you." "I'm not." "Then why?" She crossed the room and stopped in front of him. "Because I left," she said, "and I came back." The words changed him. She saw the moment they entered, saw the hunger in him bow its head to the trust beneath it. He sat very still. "What do you want?" A check-in, plain, necessary, devastating. Alina reached for his hand. He gave it to her carefully, as if she might still choose not to take it. She placed his palm against her cheek. His fingers trembled once before settling there, warm and rough and restrained. "I want one thing tonight that is not taken by violence," she said. His thumb moved along her cheekbone. "Tell me. I want you to kiss me like I chose it." His eyes went dark. "I need words," he said. The echo almost undid her. Yes, Marco, her voice lowered. Kiss me. He did. Slowly. That was the first mercy. He did not surge up and take her mouth like victory. He leaned in with care for his wound and her foot and every broken thing the night had left between them. And when his lips touched hers, the kiss was almost unbearably gentle. Alina made a small sound of protest. Marco stopped immediately. Her eyes opened. I didn't mean stop. His breath was uneven. Then, what did you mean? I meant don't treat me like glass. His thumb stilled against her face. You are not glass. No. You are hurt. Yes. You are exhausted. Yes. You are still sure. The question pulled tight through her body. No manipulation. No leveraging fear. No urgency. No claim except the one he asked permission to make. Alina shifted closer, careful of his side, and placed one knee on the couch beside his hip. His hand moved to hover near her waist, but did not land. Yes, she said, I'm sure. More, he asked. Her pulse jumped. More. His hand settled at her waist. Warm, firm, waiting. This time, when he kissed her, there was heat under the gentleness. Controlled at first, then less so as Alina leaned into him, her fingers sliding into his hair, careful not to press against his injured side. Marco made a sound low in his chest, not triumph, not demand. But relief so rough it scraped over her nerves. He kissed like a man, learning prayer in a language he had once mocked. Alina answered like a woman who had found one honest yes in a night of lies. His hands stayed where she allowed them. Waist, back, jaw. Every shift a question, every deepening of the kiss met by her answer in the tilt of her mouth, the pull of her fingers, the whispered yes against his lips when he paused to ask if she was still with him. She was. Terribly. Completely. For these stolen minutes, she let the ledger wait. Let Luca wait. Let Serafina's letters wait. Let the city wait outside the window with all its guns and ghosts and debts. She let herself have the heat of Marco's mouth, the hard restraint of his body beneath hers, the strange, fierce tenderness of a man who could order armies but would not move his hand beneath the hem of her dress without hearing her say, yes. There. He rested his forehead against hers when they finally stopped. Both of them were breathing too hard. His eyes remained closed. I want to call you mine. The words should have frightened her. They did, but not in the old way. Alina pulled back enough to see his face. And what would that mean? His eyes opened. The answer mattered. They both knew it. It would mean I stand beside you, he said. Not in front unless you ask. Not behind unless you need me there. Beside. Her throat tightened. And if I leave, then you are yours. And if I stay, his gaze burned, still yours. She kissed him once, softly. Then ask, she whispered. His hand curved against her jaw. Mine, he asked. No command. No cage. A question with an open door behind it. Alina smiled against his mouth, and the expression felt like the first living thing to grow from the wreckage. Only because you're mine too. Marco's breath broke. He pulled her close then, not hard enough to hurt, not enough to trap, only enough to let her feel the shudder that moved through him. She held him through it with care for his stitches, and none for his pride. When the secure phone rang 20 minutes later, Alina was curled against the uninjured side of his body with a blanket over her legs and her mother's letters on the table in front of them. Marco answered on speaker because she asked him to. Rafe's voice came through. We have a location. Elena sat upright. Marco's arm moved away instantly, giving her room. Serafina, she asked. A pause. Yes, Rafe said. Maybe. The video metadata was scrubbed, but not perfectly. It points to a private clinic north of the city. Old Morty property, sold through 3 shell companies. Current owner is tied to Octavia. Marco's face went deadly quiet. Elena picked up the first letter with shaking fingers. Is she a prisoner? We don't know. The answer was honest. She hated it. Marco looked at her. We do this carefully. Yes, she said. His eyes held hers, and this time she heard the difference. Not refusal, not delay, partnership. Rafe continued. There's more. Greer is talking. He says Octavia ordered Luca to recover the archive, but Luca changed the plan. He wanted control of it for himself. Of course he did, Marco said. Greer also confirms Dario tried to defect. He was bringing the ledger to you, but someone tipped Luca off. Who? Rafe hesitated. Marco's voice sharpened. Who? Bellani. Elena closed her eyes. The restaurant, the back room, the hostess's shaking hand. The pastry delivery sent to the wrong door at the exact wrong time. Not chance. Never chance. Bellini called me there, she said. Yes, Rafe said. He claims Luca threatened his family. He says he didn't know Dario would be killed. Marco's hand closed slowly into a fist. Elena placed her fingers over it. He looked at their hands, then released the fist. Have him held, Marco said. Alive. Rafe's silence carried approval. Already done. The call ended. Elena stared at her mother's letter. To Elena, if Samuel cannot tell you. She untied the string. Marco did not reach for the pages. He did not lean in. He waited. Elena unfolded the first letter. My darling girl, if you are reading this, the old lies have come close enough to touch you. I am sorry. Sorry is too small, but it is the first true thing I can offer. My name was Serafina Morty before it was Isabel Vale. I was born into a family that made fortunes hiding other men's crimes. I thought numbers were clean because they balanced. I was wrong. Numbers can be graves if the right men write them down. Your father did not steal me. He saved me. I hated him for it at first because being saved meant losing everything I knew, even the parts that hurt me. Later, I loved him because he never once called my fear weakness. Elena's vision blurred. Marco remained silent beside her. She kept reading. If I disappeared from your life, it was not because I did not love you. It was because Octavia Voss learned I had built an archive with my father's records before the fire. She wanted it. Luca want. Edit, Marco's father wanted it before he died. Samuel and I hid it behind the only lock they could not easily steal. You, my blood, and the song I gave you. That was cruel. I know that now. We told ourselves secrecy was safety. Parents are very good at making fear sound noble. A tear slipped down Elena's cheek. She did not wipe it away. Marco did. Slowly, with one knuckle, only after she leaned into the touch. The letter trembled in her hands. I was sick when I left. Not dying, though you were told I died. Samuel wanted to run with you. I refused because running with the archive still closed would have made you pray forever. I entered protection through a doctor who owed my father a debt. Samuel was supposed to bring you to me when it was safe. It was never safe. If Marco Voss is with you when you read this, judge him by whether he lets you choose, not whether he is gentle. Dangerous men can learn gentleness for a season. Judge him by the door. If he opens it, he is not his father. Elena lowered the letter. Her breath shook. Marco's eyes were fixed on the words. He looked as if Serafina had reached through paper and put a hand around the most wounded part of him. She knew you, Elena said. Maybe she knew what I could become. Which version? His gaze lifted to hers. That is the question, he said. Elena folded the letter carefully. There were more, enough to spend days with, enough to break and rebuild her understanding of every year she had lived. But not now, not all at once. Now she knew enough. Her father had saved her mother and lied to his daughter. Her mother had lived and left to keep a secret safe. Marco's family had turned love into war. And Elena, who had only meant to deliver pastries, now held the phrase that could open an archive capable of dragging the city into light. She looked at Marco. I want to see her. You will. Not as bait, not as leverage. No. With the ledgers copied, with Rafe's people, with clean legal witnesses, and whatever honest police still exist. Marco's mouth curved faintly. You have a plan. I am developing one. I should be frightened. You should be useful. I can manage both. For the first time since Bellini's, Elena smiled without pain cutting it in half. Marco saw it, and the look on his face nearly undid her again. Not possession. Wonder. The day unfolded in fragments after that. Calls, lawyers, scans, secure transfers. Sophia returning to threaten Marco into actual rest. Nina calling, crying, cursing, demanding to speak to the scary one, so she could tell Marco that if his family caused one more shattered window, she was billing him personally. Marco accepted this with such solemnity that Elena laughed until her foot hurt. By evening, Greer's arrest had become news. Not the full truth, not yet, but enough. A corrupt police captain, organized crime links, evidence suppression. Dario Kant named as a murdered accountant with records pointing to a wider conspiracy. Luca Voss held under guard after a violent confrontation. Marco's name everywhere, half demonized, half mythologized. Elena turned off the television. I hate the way they say your name. Marco sat at the dining table across from her, stubbornly upright despite Sophia's orders. Most people do. They make you sound like a monster. I am useful to them that way. And to yourself. His gaze lifted. There was the question beneath every question. He did not answer quickly. No, he said at last, not anymore. Elena believed him because he did not say it like redemption. He said it like work. Hard, unfinished, necessary. That night, Marco arranged for a car to take Elena to Nina. He did not ask to come. That mattered. Elena went with 2 guards she approved after Rafe introduced them by name, and Nina's sister inspected them like a woman choosing knives. Nina cried when Elena entered the hospital room. Then Elena cried. Then Nina called them both pathetic and demanded pastries, even though the bakery was a crime scene. Elena promised to bake again. The promise hurt. It also steadied her. When she returned to the apartment, Marco was not waiting by the door like a jailer. He was asleep on the couch, one arm over his ribs, a frown still etched between his brows like even unconsciousness had to negotiate with him first. Elena stood over him for a long moment. This dangerous man, this wounded man, this not safe, not simple, not forgiven man. He opened his eyes before she spoke. You came back. Yes. The words were softer this time. Less test, more answer. She sat beside him. Nina says you're paying for the bakery repairs. I am. She says if I argue, she'll sedate me with hospital pudding. A credible threat. I told her it has to be clean money. It will be. Elena Vale's bakery remains mine. His eyes warmed. I would not dare suggest otherwise. No, you would. You just know better now. That almost smile appeared, then faded into something more serious. I spoke with my attorney. He said, Elena stilled, about releasing you from any obligation tied to the investigation through my side. Your testimony, your access to the ledgers, your mother's letters, everything remains yours. If you decide tomorrow that you want a lawyer who has never worked for me, Rafe has a list. If you want to sell the bakery and disappear, I can provide contacts who will not report back to me. If you want to testify against my family, I will not interfere. Her throat tightened. You're giving me escape routes. Yes. Why? Because I want you to stay. The brutal honesty moved through her like heat. Marco looked at her without armor now, or with less of it. And if wanting becomes pressure, I become dangerous in the way I promised not to be. Elena touched his face. He closed his eyes. I'm not ready to promise forever, she said. His eyes opened. I did not ask. I'm not ready to forgive every lie that got me here. You should not. I'm not ready to meet my mother and pretend being alive fixes leaving. No, I'm not ready for your world. It is not ready for you either. That drew a small laugh from her. Then silence. Then his hand opened between them. Waiting. Elena placed hers in it. I am ready for tonight, she said. His fingers folded around hers. Then tonight, he said. Later, when the city had gone dark and the apartment lights were low, Elena stood at the bedroom window wearing one of Marco's shirts because her clothes were ruined, and because he had given it to her with averted eyes, as if fabric could become a scandal if handled wrong. It hung to her thighs, soft from washing, smelling faintly of cedar and him. He stood at the doorway, not entering, not assuming. His wound made his posture careful. His gaze made the room warmer. Elena. She turned. The night beyond the glass framed her in city light. She knew what she looked like. Bruised, bandaged, exhausted. Nothing like the kind of woman men like Marco were supposed to want in penthouse bedrooms. But Marco looked at her, as if survival had made her luminous. Come in, she said. He did, only as far as the foot of the bed. Sleep, he said, you need it. So do you. I can take the couch. You can. His eyes searched hers. But, he asked, but I don't want to be alone. The admission cost less than she expected. His face changed. Tenderness dragged under discipline. I can stay in the chair. You can. Elena. I want you in the bed, Marco. Her pulse beat hard, but her voice held. Beside me, that is what I'm asking. He went very still. Only sleep, he asked. She appreciated him more for the question than for any kiss. For now, then only sleep. He moved around the room, turning off one lamp, then another, giving her time to change her mind. He removed his shoes, kept his shirt on for the bandages, and lay on top of the covers until she gave him an exasperated look. "I'm not made of glass," she said. "No," he replied, "but I am trying not to be an idiot." "You're still succeeding." "High praise." She lifted the edge of the blanket. He hesitated one moment longer, then got beneath it. The bed was large enough that they did not have to touch. For a while, they did not. Alina lay on her side facing the window, awake in the dark, listening to Marco breathe behind her. The distance between them felt respectful, necessary, infuriating. "Marco." "Yes." "Hold me." He was quiet for one breath. "Then where?" Her chest tightened at the care in the single word. "My waist over the shirt." His arm came around her exactly as requested, warm and heavy, not trapping. His palms settled against her stomach over the cotton. Alina exhaled so deeply she trembled. He tensed too much. "No," she covered his hand with hers. "Enough." After a while, he whispered, "Mine." Sleep pulled at her. Dawn, ledgers, mothers, trials, repairs, reckonings, all of it waited beyond the dark. Tonight, the door was unlocked. Tonight, she had left and returned. Tonight, the claim was not a chain. Alina laced her fingers through his and held him there. "Yours," she whispered, "because you're mine too." Marco's breath touched the back of her neck, unsteady and warm. Outside, the city kept its secrets, a little less tightly than before. Inside, Alina closed her eyes and slept.